The assassins were shocked by her abilities. Such strength from a Wu Jiang. Qingtong, wasting no time, readied her dual swords to strike. Chen Zhu watched, bewildered. She had divine weapons and king-level power, so why was she allowing the man to pressure her? Qingtong was growing more and more irritated. Her strength was waning, and collapse was imminent. Suddenly, Zhu Gan was struck with regret. He remembered Yi Qianming's order to protect Qingtong. This woman was too important. They'd be doomed if anything happened to her. He channeled his spiritual fire, which blazed intensely. A red-haired youth materialized. Qingtong, too, noticed Chen Zhu's change. As the youth prepared to attack, a cold voice stopped him. Don't interfere. He, too, was stunned. It was him. Head orchestrated this, using the assassins as pawns. A man in grey robes leaped down. The assassins were shocked. Why would she choose this place to fight? Spiritual energy surged into his sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Bo Qian. Yi Qianming was the one who'd hired them. Trapped in the formation, the man screamed in agony, his struggles pointless. Qingtong smirked inwardly. She hadn't expected the techniques Head taught her to be so powerful. Chen Zhu, crying, ran over. Master. She almost died. Don't you care? She pinched his face. I felt her power surge just now. Did you really think she was going to die? And why would I care about that idiot? Qingtong's strength had partially returned, reaching mid-level Sheng Zun. She was still worried. If she didn't fully recover soon, she'd be in serious trouble. Suddenly, Chen Zhu shouted, "What are you doing?" Zhan Enyu anxiously explained that the commotion was caused by the disappearance of a Qianyu Branch Academy instructor. He added cautiously, glancing at Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming stared intensely at Qingtong. Qingtong felt a sense of dread. A sudden thought occurred to her. I'll take care of the instructor. You go after the others. Seeing Qingtong's delicate figure, he knew she truly cared. Qingtong grabbed the man's hand. Leave them. He's injured. Their eyes met, and Yi Qianming froze. Qingtong ripped open the man's clothes. He, the dignified Ming Zun, was being undressed by a woman. Not only was he being groped by this female hooligan, but she also had the gall to look at him with a pitiful expression. Bei Qin's jaw dropped. He had never seen anything so scandalous. Yi Qianming was seething. This woman had been taking advantage of him since the very beginning. Every encounter was a new form of exploitation. Qingtong's face flushed. I'm sorry, she mumbled, checking his meridians. A familiar sensation made Yi Qianming tremble. The areas she touched felt warm. He didn't understand what she was doing. Qingtong inwardly cursed him for 18 generations. Are your meridians made of iron? Why can't I channel any energy through them? As her hand moved lower, Yi Qianming cried out, "What are you doing?" Qingtong put on a pitiful act. What? I'm healing you. Are you trying to frame me? Suddenly, Feng Yu was attacked by assassins. Qingtong sensed the danger and realized they were running out of time. Her red pupils flashed. Chen Zhu transformed into a cannonball, hurtling towards the assassins. Stop her! From within the barrier, Chen Zhu's panicked voice echoed. She's gone crazy. These are Sheng-level assassins. Qingtong utilized the Tong Shu. Tong Guang Hua Shu. The assassins screamed in pain. Feng Yu attacked recklessly, with no regard for his own safety. Yi Qianming watched coldly. Is this all she's capable of? Chen Zhu was terrified by the sudden surge of violence. Qingtong yelled, "If you can't stop them, you're going in the stew pot. I didn't raise you to be a useless freeloader. Do your job." Chen Zhu, abandoning his laziness, unleashed his spiritual power, his aura crackling with intensity. Qingtong ordered, "End this quickly. We don't want to injure them too badly." Yi Qianming's meridians had been tampered with. Chen Zhu transformed, his purpled spiritual energy forming a massive dragon, coiling around the assassins. Chen Zhu's intervention turned the tide of the battle. Feng Yu struck one of the assassins down, only for him to be grabbed by another. Quick! Kill the target. To their surprise, the assassin refused to die. Sensing the danger, Yi Qianming urged Qingtong to run. Qingtong looked at him. Could she really leave him behind? Seeing her hesitation, Yi Qianming's resolve hardened. He'd rather die than see her captured. How could he abandon her? He had tricked and harmed her countless times, yet she always forgave him. With his strength, killing her would be child's play. Qingtong suddenly asked, do you truly not blame me, for all the horrible things I've done, for putting you in danger? Yi Qianming replied sincerely, it was my own miscalculation. I would never blame you. Qingtong felt a pang of guilt. The assassins were closing in. Qingtong seemed to have made a decision. Close your eyes, she instructed, determination in her eyes. Yi Qianming, feigning ignorance, didn't understand. He prepared to break free from the restraints. Qingtong panicked. This troublesome man. She thought. She ripped off her mask, and pulled him into a tight embrace. Their lips pressed together, and his body trembled. Yi Qianming couldn't comprehend why she was giving him her remaining spiritual power. The power suddenly surged back. She wants my power. He pushed her away. Realizing what had happened, Yi Qianming took the initiative. Qingtong was overwhelmed by the sudden influx of energy. Uncontrollable power coursed through her. The assassins were taken aback by her sudden power surge and hesitated. We shouldn't kill her. It's too risky. Zhu Gan pulled Yi Qianming out of the line of fire. He casually waved his robe. The approaching assassins were incinerated. He looked at Yi Qianming. Teach me your strongest move. He was like a volcano ready to erupt. Yi Qianming, due to his unique constitution, only had one technique, and only he could use it. Qingtong, however, ignored his protests, urging him. Seeing her desperation, he relented. Red trees materialized, their branches reaching towards the sky, a perfect combination of attack and defense. Zan Qianzhe. Qianxing Kei Yi, Di Lai. As the formation appeared, the movements of the Zan Qianzhu unfolded before Qingtong. Understanding dawned in her eyes. She grabbed two swords. First move of Zan Qianzhu. Zhuqian. Heaven and earth quaked at this single attack. A terrifying power, capable of splitting the heavens, erupted, instantly obliterating the semi-Sheng assassins. Wei Qin and Chun Zhu were stunned by this display of power. Feng Yu was also shocked. That's Master's ultimate move. Ziyi knows it. Cheng Yang dissipated, and Qingtong collapsed. Yi Qianming, watching her execute the technique, felt a surge of emotions. This woman is destined for me. The poison in his body was purged by the force of the attack. His gaze locked onto her. Qingtong, exhausted, leaned against him. It was the first time she'd leaned against him so unguardedly, like a tired kitten. Qingtong was surprised by his immense power. Such a casual use of the technique, yet so devastating. If only you were weaker, she murmured. Yi Qianming was taken aback. Weaker? Isn't it better to be strong? For the first time, Qingtong confessed her true feelings. If you were weaker I could keep you by my side and I wouldn't have to. She trailed off. Yi Qianming's eyes widened. She wants me to stay with her. She really does, but you're too strong for me to control. I hate feeling helpless. Yi Qianming was overjoyed. She wants me with her, but she's hesitant because I'm too strong. He boldly stated, my power might be overwhelming, but you're welcome to stay. Qingtong smiled wryly. His words were too good to be true. Thank you, Zunzu, she said, leaning closer and resting her head against his chest. His body stiffened. Yi Qianming, oblivious to her discomfort, was lost in his own thoughts. He was struggling internally. Why is it so difficult to be close to her? Is it because Xiao Bei excitedly pointed out that Feng Yu was staring at them, winking. See? It's love. Zan Enyu, however, was disgusted. They are brothers. This is so wrong. I can't watch. Qingtong pulled out a nourishing pill, and placed it in Yi Qianming's hand. He opened his mouth obediently and swallowed it. Only Qingtong in the entire continent had such a pill. Who would have thought the ruthless Ming Zun could be so gentle? This scene was unbearable for Yu Wenmo, who burned with jealousy. His spiritual form solidified. This medicine, it's a modified version of an ancient recipe. I'm the first to try it. Yi Qianming's face turned serious, as he instructed him to keep the pill refining a secret. He was to use his Zi identity in all matters, and he would take full responsibility if anything went wrong. Qingtong was touched by his concern, nodding as tears welled up in her eyes. It was the second time he had expressed such care. The first was regarding the Qianyang Mi, but this time, it felt genuine. His heart raced. With a serious expression, Yi Qianming promised to always protect her. He didn't notice her tears. She suddenly kissed his cheek, surprising him. Looking at him, she softly whispered, "Thank you." Her sincere gaze made Yi Qianming blush. He stammered, telling her to let him go. At the Luo Kingdom Palace, the man paced restlessly, scheming against Shen Fa. Liu Wangyi looked troubled. They were losing. Suddenly, applause rang out. Qingtong had appeared out of thin air. Her arrival startled the prince, who ordered his guards to attack. A strange silence descended. No one moved to obey his command. They simply froze. Useless fools. He raged inwardly. Do I have to do everything myself? Why not just kill her? Do you need my permission for that? He was also furious. How dare these insignificant nobodies defy him? No wonder he couldn't find her. She was in hiding. He reached for Yi Qianming's hand. Let her go. Ill help. Seeing the fear in Qingtong's eyes, his heart softened. Don't worry. I'm here. He gently stroked her hair. Xiao Qianming glared at him. Do you have to flirt with everyone you meet? Are you that starved for attention? Is that all you think about? He fumed inwardly. Qingtong was filled with murderous intent. Countless dark figures surrounded them, forcing everyone to their knees before Qingtong. She took out the antidote and offered it to them. Yi Qianming, however, stopped her, angrily questioning her actions. This was forbidden. Flustered, Ming Zun raised his hands in surrender. Zhan Enyu quickly consumed the antidote. This satisfied Yi Qianming, who then lectured him. He wanted to know why Qingtong would do such a thing. She explained it would force them to become her spies and serve as a warning to whoever was behind this. To teach her a lesson, Zunzu decided to feign sleep and ignore her. He was still smarting from being abandoned by her before. Qingtong, however, didn't realize the man was actually awake. Xiao Qianming desperately wanted Qingtong to explain herself, but he was too proud to ask. Unaware of his inner conflict, Xiao Qianming was already planning his revenge. As he entered the protective barrier, Qingtong immediately threw her arms around him, burying her face in his chest. This startled him. What are you doing? He asked, his voice muffled. She looked up at him, her face close to his. Don't you like it when I'm close to you? Ming Zun was stunned. She likes me. A thrill ran through him. He was now allowed in her room. It was her private sanctuary, and being allowed inside felt incredibly intimate. Qingtong kept up the act. Relax. Why are you so tense? Yi Qianming was flustered. This was too much. He begged her to let him go. Qingtong teased, why? Don't you like it when I hold you? Who else can I be this close to? Seeing his embarrassed expression, Ming Zun's face flushed crimson. He stammered, let go. Qingtong, however, was not about to release him. She suddenly kissed him on the forehead, catching him completely off guard. He touched the spot where she'd kissed him, completely stunned. She's getting bolder, he thought. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's class with her. The man brushed against her arm, but Qingtong cried out in pain. A dark mark appeared, rapidly spreading across her arm. Seeing her injured, Xiao Qianming demanded an explanation from the man. The man, however, just turned and left. It turned out that to attend classes with Qingtong, he was forced to alternate between the roles of Wang Yi and pet. The once dignified Ming Zun was reduced to a pet. This fueled his suppressed rage, which he unleashed in a wave of killing intent. Qingtong, however, noticed the man was on the verge of collapsing. She reached out to steady him. It's just a little poison, she said, showing him the already fading mark. But in her concern, she forgot her other identity, Ziyigui Tong. Xiao Qianming revealed the man's unique physique. His body is filled with a complex mixture of toxins, locked in a delicate balance. He possesses the extremely rare Wan Du physique. Qingtong had read about such a physique in ancient texts. A fully realized Wan Du physique could manipulate toxins at will. Coupled with powerful techniques and weapons, it would be a formidable force. This piqued her interest in the so-called trash class. What other hidden talents did they possess? Upon entering the classroom, Su Xiaoxiao greeted her and invited her to sit together. Qingtong glanced at Xiao Qianming, puzzled. She hadn't seen him with Qingtong the day before. Qingtong explained, this is my precious darling, my little pet. He's useful, and very obedient. Su Xiaoxiao blushed, at a loss for words. Xiao Qianming seethed, she's doing this to make me jealous. Yuan, who stormed into the classroom and glared at Qingtong. He still couldn't figure out how she had broken through his iron skin defense, and he wanted another chance to defeat and cripple her. Qingtong simply stared at him like he was an idiot and refused. She looked at Xiao Qianming, daring him to try stealing from her again. If he did, she'd make him pay. As Yuan Hu reached for Xiao Qianming, Qingtong intercepted his hand. A searing pain shot up his arm, and he yelped. The instructor watched, amused, as Zunzu winced. Yuan Hu buried his face in Qingtong's chest. When the man returned to his residence as instructed, Feng Yu and Bei Qin immediately bowed, acknowledging Qingtong as their leader. Qingtong merely sighed. She treated Chu Wenhao's wounds. However, someone had overheard their conversation. He glared at them menacingly. Qingtong easily crushed his hand. Although she appreciated his attempt to help, she wouldn't allow him to steal. He needed to ask first. The man, nursing his throbbing hand, claimed ignorance and apologized profusely. Head only acted on impulse to save his sister. He offered up the medicine Head been trying to steal. He, however, was more interested in Qingtong. He knew he had an extraordinary physique, yet she had crippled him with ease. Qingtong ignored him and left with Chu Wenhao. Yi Qianming, watching them from within the protective barrier, narrowed his eyes. This boy, why does he seem so familiar? Where have I seen him before? Back at the dark sacred region, Yi Qianming assembled his men. Dispose of the bodies. I'm going after those fools. Anyone who dared to harm Qingtong would face his wrath. It's time to go back, he declared. Feng Yu and Bei Qin were thrilled. Xiao Bei, however, asked anxiously, Master, are we returning to that place? Yi Qianming confirmed his intentions. Feng Yu and Bei Qin were overjoyed. The Qianyu Imperial Palace was in chaos. The Imperial Guards protecting Bei Dao were struggling, and the palace was under attack. The Emperor was furious. Bei Jimang rushed to protect the Emperor, but he was kidnapped, and the treasury looted. The Qianyu Emperor, in his rage, suffered a heart attack and collapsed. Having reached his limit, he summoned the elders to help stabilize the situation. Meanwhile, back in the secret realm, Qingtong was berating herself. I almost got myself killed. Chan Zu scolded her for being reckless. Qingtong looked utterly dejected. Not only had she fallen for Yi Qianming's trap and become entangled with him, but now she was the one being hunted. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. Chan Zu, seeing her distress, tried to comfort her. Master, he's harmless. Qingtong gave him a look. Easy for you to say. He's after me. She suddenly remembered the words of the old man, who helped remove her curse. Was his name Yi Qianming? She realized the implications of Yi Qianming protecting her. He's been pursuing me this whole time. That's why he's so persistent. Not for revenge, but because he's interested. She was suddenly seized by the urge to tie the man up. The next morning, Qingtong went to the Yang Yao market. She saw a crowd of people exclaiming, he's so handsome. She glanced over, and froze. Ming Zun was standing right there, in the Yang Yao market. He's playing with fire. He's asking for it. She thought. Seeing him, Qingtong felt her stomach churn. Chan Zu was equally dumbfounded. He turned his head away. He's everywhere. I can't escape him. This must be fate. I give up. Qingtong wanted to mess with him. She put on a charming smile. Young master, you're easy on the eyes. Care to join me for a drink? Her words made Ming Zun's eyes widen. His hands trembled slightly, betraying his nervousness. He also felt a strong urge to flee. Sure, he agreed. Let's have a drink. His hand was clasped in hers, and he couldn't pull away. A shiver ran down Qingtong's spine. Is he really? Or is it an act? What's his game? She decided to stay. Why aren't you running? He asked, puzzled. Feigning innocence, Qingtong casually replied, run. Why would I? I just arrived. Did you really think I'd run? Hearing her response, he visibly relaxed. Qingtong sat down, a growing sense of unease creeping into her heart. You mentioned raising something earlier. Indeed, he replied. With a beauty like you, I imagine anyone would want to keep you. He gestured towards the caged exotic animals. So it was because he wanted a pet. That explained his repeated attempts to capture her. He even admitted it openly. If it's her, as long as she doesn't cause any trouble, he'll allow her to stay. Qingtong was hesitant. What is he thinking? I should probably leave. He locked eyes with her. Yi Qianming. Qingtong choked on her drink. How does he know my name? He's been searching for me this whole time. But I told him to ignore the rumors. Is there another reason? She quickly changed the subject. What are you doing in the Qianyu Empire? Yi Qianming gave her a sly smile. Capturing someone, of course. He wanted to gauge her reaction. He even went as far as to accuse her of heinous crimes. Upon learning that Yi Qianming was there to arrest her, Qingtong was relieved. If he truly intended to arrest her, he would have already done so. She was overthinking. Yi Qianming continued to drink, making Qingtong increasingly nervous. Let's see how long your eyes can hold up. Qingtong matched him, drink for drink. After a while, the alcohol started to affect her, and her vision blurred. When Yi Qianming offered her another cup, Qingtong refused repeatedly. His real reason for being there was to protect her. Realizing this, Yi Qianming reached out. He likes men. He really does. Their fingers brushed. A strange warmth spread through Yi Qianming's chest. He blushed and looked away. His heart was pounding. This shameless woman. She's deliberately teasing me. I'll get my revenge someday. Qingtong, however, skillfully took his pulse. Still the same. Weak. His constitution was truly pitiful. She still couldn't figure out the cause. It was a strange and baffling condition. Even though he usually disliked being touched, he found himself enjoying it now. Qingtong was confused. The more she investigated, the more questions she had. Yi Qianming asked, "How's the market?" Qingtong replied, "Fine." She was inwardly frustrated. Another dead end. Her vision was fading fast. She needed to restore it soon. Just as she was about to leave, he stopped her. "Are you running again?" He put his hand on her shoulder. "We agreed to drink until we both collapse. Don't break your promise." "What's going on? Why won't he let me leave?" She could only blame her mother for this predicament. He seemed to read her mind. "Your eyes are about to give out. I'll wait until you collapse." Since she couldn't leave, she decided to go along with it. Qingtong realized she had been tricked. How could she be so gullible? Seeing her frustration, Yi Qianming smiled inwardly. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach. I need to use the restroom." He grinned mischievously. "Don't worry. I'll have bacon." "No." Qingtong interrupted. "It's okay. I'll go with you." Qingtong realized she'd fallen right into his trap again. How can I be so stupid? Seeing her defeated expression, Yi Qianming's heart softened. He suddenly clutched his stomach and groaned dramatically. "Oh, this hurts." He gave her a sly look. "It seems I have to trouble you." Bacon stared, dumbfounded, thinking, "Master, you're such a drama queen." Feng Yu, however, found it quite funny. "Master, you're so extra." Yi Qianming suddenly stood up. "Since Tong Tong insists, I shall accompany you." Qingtong had no choice but to ask Bacon for assistance. "Little Bei, please." Bacon puffed out his chest. "Don't worry. I'll keep a close watch on him." Yi Qianming inwardly smirked. "Let's see how you escape now." After a while, however, he became restless. Feng Yu reassured him, "Master, relax. We've got this covered. He won't cause any trouble." Yi Qianming, however, crushed his wine glass. Qingtong was still with Bacon. He narrowed his eyes. He sensed murderous intent radiating from Bacon. What was he planning? He reached for Yi Qianming and grabbed his hand, an action that made Yu Lao want to chop his hand off. This annoyed Yi Qianming. He put his ring on the table. "I'm taking you somewhere to meet some friends." Yi Qianming allowed himself to be led away. They arrived at a room. An unsettling feeling washed over Yi Qianming. A group of men charged towards him. He stared at them, stunned. A wave of killing intent erupted from him. Turning to look for Qingtong, he found Shed vanished. Shed abandoned him yet again. Hearing the explosions from behind him, he flew into a rage. The consequences were going to be severe. Chunzu was terrified, realizing he and Zhugan might be forced together. Qingtong smacked the idiot upside the head. He was ordered to gather all the refining equipment. Each piece was massive, big enough to hold hundreds of people. Chunzu marveled. How did she get her hands on so many high-grade tools? Qingtong, her face smeared with peeling makeup, replied, "For setting traps, of course." Yi Qianming arrived at the designated meeting place, his face flushed. "Zitong. You just couldn't wait to ditch me, could you?" He suspected Shed faked her distress. "What are you talking about?" Bacon and Feng Yu asked, bewildered. "Master, what happened?" Yi Qianming was exasperated. She took me to a brothel. Do you understand? Xiao Bei was furious. I'll tear her apart. I'll make her pay. Yi Qianming was even angrier. How dare you talk about her like that? I won't tolerate it. Bei Qin sensed something wasn't right. Could Master actually have feelings for Ziyi? Yi Qianming's outburst confirmed his suspicions. He recalled the conversation between Feng Yu and Bei Qin. Does Master have feelings for Ziyi? Thinking about the woman's audacity, her mischievous and carefree nature, her vibrant and dramatic reactions whenever she was around him, he realized he couldn't deny it any longer. He was in love. Bei Qin cautiously asked, Master, do you like Ziyi? Feng Yu immediately clapped a hand over his mouth. Do you want to die? Don't be so reckless. A terrified Feng Yu dragged Xiao Bei away. This brought Yi Qianming back to reality. Like her, Feng Yu explained, if you constantly worry about someone, and are easily provoked by their actions. Feng Yu believed this was love and looked at Yi Qianming expectantly. Yi Qianming was struck by a sudden realization. If I love her, then I must have her. That woman had made the first move. Now that he'd acknowledged his feelings, he wouldn't let her get away. Late that night, he appeared in the Qianyu Imperial Palace's underground vault. Qingtong suddenly materialized in front of some ancient script. She quickly set up her formation, easily bypassing the defenses, and entered. Qingtong frowned. The Qianyu Imperial family is surprisingly careful. They even have a barrier here. It was a special energy barrier, activated solely by royal blood. Chanzu assumed they were locked out. Qingtong smirked. There's always another way. Besides blood, there's medicine. She pulled out some Shu Mi rings and casually tossed them inside. In the next instant, the rings exploded. She'd been testing explosives. She'd instructed her subordinates to refine Shu Mi rings and distribute them while she searched for the necessary ingredients in the vault. Time passed as she carefully placed the ingredients according to the ancient recipe. Chanzu asked suspiciously, do you even know how to refine medicine? She did, of course. She was following the recipe to make a medicine to restore her grandfather's cultivation. The final, crucial step was to imbue the concoction with the combined energy of heaven and earth to unlock its full potential. As she meticulously added the herbs, the roof exploded outwards. Both Qingtong and Chun Zu were wide-eyed. The Qian Xingguo was finally complete. Lao Sen cried out excitedly as the cauldron burst. Chun Zu, unfazed by the explosion, laughed. I haven't seen Qingtong mess up this badly in ages. He didn't notice the shadow looming above. Suddenly, it crashed down on him, pinning him to the ground, and a blood-curdling scream echoed. As night fell, the medicine was finally ready. Qingtong's eyes snapped open. Seeing the finished medicine, she exclaimed, finally. Chun Zu sighed with relief. After countless explosions and so many wasted ingredients, his days of fear were finally over. As Qingtong was about to consume the medicine in one go, Xiao Zhu suddenly tumbled onto the table. The medicine she needed to cure her eyes was ready too. Chun Zhu frantically searched for it, and Qingtong joined him. In the midst of the chaos, she stumbled across a letter. It was a recommendation from the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Thinking of the old man from Heiyu, Xiao Zhu believed had been impressed with Qingtong's talent, and sent her the recommendation. Suddenly, a voice startled him. Several figures materialized in the room. To her surprise, it was Luo Qingtong. Meanwhile, Xiao Bei was searching desperately for Feng Yu. Since their last encounter, Feng Yu had removed the seal. Now, traces of Juyu Huang realm energy lingered in the river. Unable to swim, he was panicking. A splash suddenly made him believe that Feng Yu had. He turned to find Zhu Fei standing there, smiling. The memory of what happened at Dai Sifang sent shivers down Xiao Bei's spine. Zhu Fei, flustered, explained that he was about to rescue him, but Feng Yu had stopped him. Feng Yu demanded angrily, why did you hurt Xiao Bei? You'll pay for this if anything happens to him. After all, he was Bei Ke's subordinate. Feng Yu was, however, shoved away unceremoniously. He didn't deserve to be near Xiao Bei. Suddenly, Xiao Bei surfaced. Noticing the tears in Feng Yu's eyes, Feng Yu embraced Xiao Bei. It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left you. Seeing Feng Yu cry, Xiao Bei was struck by a sudden pang of guilt. He didn't understand why. Zhu Fei watched them, a warm feeling spreading through his chest. However, seeing them embrace, filled him with an unfamiliar jealousy. Xiao Bei was startled by Zhu Fei's actions and stared at him, wide-eyed. He couldn't imagine the kind of trauma he must have suffered at Dai Sifang. He forced a smile and explained the situation. Xiaobei finally realized he'd overreacted. Also, because he couldn't swim, he asked Zhuo Fei to check for any Zhu Huang realm remnants in the water. Feng Yu inwardly cursed Xiaobei for being such an idiot. As Zhuo Fei entered the water, Xiaobei suddenly pushed him. Feng Yu reacted instinctively. Xiaobei watched in shock, as Feng Yu effortlessly picked up a massive boulder, and threw it into the water. Zhuo Fei, still underwater, was completely unaware of the danger. Thousands of miles away, Feng Yu had rallied his troops and surrounded the Luo residence. The Wang clan army had failed to secure the crown prince. Instead, Qingtong was now holding him hostage, using him as leverage against them. The Wang clan reported this to Qian Yu. After Yu Wenzu pleaded with him, the Qian Yu emperor ordered him to rescue the prince and destroy the Luo family. The man stood before the Luo residence. The formations Qingtong had set up were nothing to him. With a wave of his hand, the formations crumbled, and spiritual energy surged from the residence. The man raised his hand, his face a mask of cold ruthlessness. "Leave no one alive," he commanded. He stormed into the Luo residence, his target Luo Lao Yizi. Zhan Yu rushed at him, only to be effortlessly swatted aside like an insect. The final defender was dealt with just as he was about to reach the entrance. He triggered a formation. He was shocked. This small Luo residence was surprisingly well defended. He channeled his spiritual energy, summoning a large energy shield. It was his signature move, Yijian Cheng Cheng. Suddenly, a sword beam from the Luo family sword shattered his shield. Qingtong, disguised as Ziyi, appeared. Countless figures emerged from the Luo residence. He instructed his men to prepare, as he would deal with these intruders personally. Chunzu, however, was concerned about Qingtong's condition. She'd consumed a lot of strong medicine. Qingtong, however, brushed it off. The man was surprised that Ziyi Guitong would defend the Luo family. Ziyi's identity was sensitive. He approached cautiously. "Is there something I can assist you with?" His dual swords transformed, becoming deadly weapons. A chilling killing intent radiated from Qingtong, enveloping the entire Luo residence. The man revealed his identity. "I am Yu Wenzu of the Qian Yu imperial family." This only intensified Qingtong's killing intent. The sword technique he used was effortlessly countered. Once the mist cleared, his protective armor was visible. Xiaozu warned, "Master, be careful. That's Wu Di armor." The man gave a maniacal laugh. "Just armor. I'm not afraid." He attacked, but his blows didn't even faze the man. He raised his hand, sending Qingtong flying with a single blow. A ferocious tiger appeared behind him, radiating spiritual power. The tiger pounced on Qingtong. Chunzu, terrified, flew from his hiding spot. "Master, help!" He wanted to intervene, but Qingtong ordered him to stay back. He was curious about the formations, and wanted to test whether the Yin Hun Muse would attribute could absorb power here. Qingtong watched the approaching tiger and sneered. "You're seriously injured, yet you still use spiritual power. You're asking for death." Her red pupils glowed. She was a ruthless gambler. Spiritual energy poured into her sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Fa Ju. A powerful force collided with the tiger's paw. The tiger roared in pain. The following day, uninvited guests arrived at the Luo residence gate. The Luo family will fall because of Luo Qingtong. Join second miss while you still can. Those who were arrogant and dismissive before, claiming Luo Qingtong was useless, now groveled and begged for mercy. It turned out that after settling matters at Juwu Mountain, Qingtong had returned to Luo Fu. With a single glance, the man was instantly subdued by her tears. Qingtong, however, poured the Yixiang head brought onto them, and ordered the war slaves, "Since they want to join us, let them." She then had them locked up. "Go tell Luo Shenning that she and her mother will pay for what they've done to the Luo family and me." Back inside the Luo residence, Luo Lao Yizi's face was ashen and drawn. Seeing the disarray, he weakly asked, "What happened?" The household staff knelt, trembling. The steward explained that Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation was rapidly declining. He would soon be a cripple. This news devastated Qingtong. Touching Luo Lao Yizi's pale face, she felt his pain. His cultivation had fallen to the 6th level of Wuzong, and was still plummeting. Qingtong was enraged. Who could devise such a cruel and insidious method? The steward explained everything. It was Luo Shenning's scheme. After Luo Lao Yizi collapsed, she took control of the Luo family, spreading rumors that blamed Qingtong for their misfortune. Qingtong, however, suspected more than just Luo Qingtong. She didn't believe she had the guts, or the intelligence to orchestrate such a plan. The Qianyu imperial family must be behind it. She was just a pawn. Luo Lao Yizi suddenly awoke. Seeing that Qingtong was safe, he was relieved. He blamed himself for his recklessness, which led to his coma, and caused Qingtong so much worry. Qingtong, seeing his regret, reassured him, "Don't worry, Grandpa. I'll handle it." Luo Lao Yizi chuckled. "Losing some cultivation is nothing. As long as you're all right." Tears welled in Qingtong's eyes. Luo Lao Yizi had sacrificed so much for her. How could she ever repay him? She held his hand. "Don't worry, Grandpa. I'll take care of the Luo family. I'll help you recover. You'll be stronger than before." Meanwhile, at Luo Qingtong's residence, the Luo Fu plaque hung above the gate. Inside, Bai Lian's family celebrated. They now controlled the Luo family, and were toasting to Qingtong's ruin. Suddenly, the sound of horses' hooves disrupted the celebration. By order of eldest Miss, we're here to arrest the second branch and seize their assets. Bai Lian's mother was furious. The war slave displayed the imperial edict, striking fear into their hearts. Bai Lian was terrified. She was shocked to find that a simple guard was a 5th-level woohoo. How can Luo Qingtong have such powerful guards? Seeing their hesitation, the war slave advanced, while Bai Lian and her family retreated in fear. Bai Lian looked around frantically, then pushed her own father towards the war slave. In the chaos, the war slave easily captured Bai Lian's father. While retreating, Bai Lian even threw her maids at the guards, clearly willing to sacrifice anyone to protect herself. Screams of terror and fury echoed from the entrance. The men were imprisoned in the dungeon, but Lao pleaded for release, citing his loyalty to Wang Xifeng and the Qianyu emperor. The war slaves also informed Qingtong that Bai Lian had fled to the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Upon arriving at the dungeon, Qingtong happened upon the man's desperate pleas. Qingtong mocked him. "Your own father is being used as a pawn, and you still expect him to save you." The man, however, believed it was all Ning Er's scheme. His eyes turned cold. He would not forgive anyone who dared harm his grandfather, especially those manipulating events from the shadows. He called the man spineless, less than an animal, for using his own father as a shield. Lao oblivious, was still arguing. When Qingtong pulled out a few pills, she instructed the first war slave to give Luo Lao the pills, and release the decoy outside. Hearing this, Luo Lao's face paled. After he swallowed the pills, his strength increased dramatically. However, if he used this enhanced strength, it would backfire tremendously. If he didn't use it, he'd become a monster. Luo Lao cried out in despair, "Ning Er, I won't let you go." Qingtong disregarded his cries. Bai Lian was next. Later that night, Qingtong examined the accounts in her study. Zhan Enyu informed her that Luo Qingtong had returned to Luo residence, accompanied by a Qianyu branch academy instructor who, strangely, seemed completely devoted to Qingtong. Intrigued, Qingtong wanted to see this for herself. She told Zhan Enyu to prepare a list of all the gifts she had received from the royals and nobles over the years. She planned to send them all to Bai Lian as a gift. Meanwhile, Bai Lian paced nervously in her room. She was certain Qingtong wouldn't let her go. Her father's disappearance was also Qingtong's fault. Chu Laoma was gone, but if he dared to return and cause any trouble, she'd make him pay. Bai Lian feigned a pitiful expression, earning Chu Lao's sympathy. He believed she was too kind and thus easily bullied by Qingtong. Suddenly, a loud crash startled them both. The Luo family plaque was in pieces on the floor. Qingtong, mounted on a tall horse, ordered the war slaves to destroy the plaque. She slapped Bai Lian, whose face was thick with makeup, for daring to impersonate a Luo. The war slaves carried out her orders with gusto. "Stop. That plaque was a gift from Qianyu Branch Academy to Miss." Qingtong ignored their protests. Bai Lian put on a dramatic show. "Big sister, what are you doing?" The two locked eyes. The Luo family plaque was all that remained. "Since you've been expelled, how can you still hang this plaque?" Qingtong had a new plaque brought out. The two characters Dao Fu enraged Bai Lian. Fear and fury welled within her. "I'm your sister. How dare you humiliate me? Don't you have a heart?" Qingtong was even angrier at her feigned innocence. Bai Lian put on a tearful performance. "Big sister, you're so cruel. You kicked me out of the family, and you're still after me. Look at the state of the Luo family. Grandpa's declining cultivation is all because of you. Her acting was worthy of an Oscar. Qingtong would have been fine had she not mentioned Luo Lao Yizi, but his name only enraged her further. Zhan Enyu stepped forward. What have you done? Do you dare to tell the truth? Bai Lian's expression changed in an instant. One moment, she was fiercely defending her disciple, the next, she was being slapped. Qingtong not only exposed her shameful actions, she also provided solid evidence. Just now, faced with the accusations, Bai Lian had shamelessly hidden behind Chu Lao. He couldn't bear to see his beloved disciple being shamed. In Qingtong's eyes, Bai Lian was nothing but a spoiled, arrogant brat, abusing her connection to the fifth prince and causing trouble everywhere. Qingtong scowled. And who is this mutt? The Luo family's business is none of his concern. Bai Lian twisted Qingtong's words to her advantage, revealing that Chu Lao was a Qianyu branch academy instructor. Qingtong inwardly mocked the old fool for being tricked by the two-faced Bai Lian and acting as her shield. He must be an idiot, she thought. Qingtong sneered at him, showing no respect. This angered Chu Lao, and he threatened to teach her a lesson. Qingtong, however, remained unconcerned. Chunzu, on the other hand, really wanted to give that old geezer a piece of his mind. Qingtong stopped him. She wasn't interested in brawling. The show was much more entertaining. She ordered the war slaves to present the financial records. Since Chu Lao wants to defend his disciple, let's settle these accounts for her. She then tossed Zhao Mu into Bai Lian's arms, startling her. When Chu Lao saw the accounts, his heart sank. He tried to object, but to no avail. He insisted that Qingtong had fabricated everything, claiming that none of those items existed. Knowing Bai Lian all too well, Qingtong challenged, "Then do you dare to let me search your residence?" The war slaves were dispatched. Bai Lian pinned all her hopes on Chu Lao, her heart pounding, her face pale. Those were all gifts from you. This was her undoing. Qingtong didn't miss a beat. Gifts from the Qianyu imperial family. And you think I'd just give them away? Do you expect me to return them? Bai Lian was speechless, tears streaming down her face. You're just jealous because I'm more talented. Suddenly, a shout interrupted her crocodile tears. Why are you spending your mother's money? Bai Lian insisted that Qingtong had forced her to accept those treasures. Qingtong was exasperated. I an idiot? Forcing you to accept gifts. Who's the crazy one here, me or you? She ordered the war slaves to seize everything. Anyone obstructing them would be deemed an enemy of the Qianyu imperial family. Seeing that her plan had failed, Bai Lian pleaded with Chu Lao to intervene. Chu Lao rose without hesitation. This is just a tactic to get back the recommendation and the heirloom. He accused Qingtong of disrespecting the imperial family, and declared she'd never be allowed into Qianyu Academy. Qingtong merely scoffed. That thing's been used. I don't need it. Entering the Qianyu Academy depends on ability, not family name. She stared intently at his jade pendant. Isn't this the engagement token the fifth prince gave me? This sent Chu Lao into a furious rage. He ripped the pendant off, and roared at Bai Lian, "Didn't you say it was a gift from the Qianyu imperial family?" Bai Lian was speechless, her face ashen. Qingtong burst into laughter. This is what I call reaching one's limit. I don't know about you. She slapped Bai Lian. Chu Lao had never been so humiliated. Qingtong, adding insult to injury, clapped her hands gleefully. Tossing the pendant aside, she walked away triumphantly. She enjoyed watching others suffer while she remained untouchable. Xiaozu appeared, clapping his hooves in approval. Suddenly, the Juyu Huang realm seal began to tremble. Qingtong was startled. Xiaozu jumped. Why was the seal, after such a long period of dormancy, suddenly active again? Qingtong was busy lecturing Bai Lian, but disappeared instantly. Something was happening to the Juyu Huang realm seal. The commotion was due to the man's return. Yi Qianming was obsessed with Qingtong. Back in the dark sacred region, countless people prostrated themselves before the returning sovereign. His arrival immediately calmed the turbulent atmosphere. Feng Yu and Bai Shou exchanged a look. Yu Lao teased him, "I thought you had been lured away by that invitation." The man simply raised his hand, revealing the magnificent dragon fang sword. This surprised Yu Lao. He hadn't thought he would actually return to the dark sacred region. Yu Lao, fixated on the ring, asked, "You didn't really come back just for that ring, did you? You were really hooked by that little invitation." Xiao Bei seized his chance. Master, that invitation wasn't from a woman. Just as Xiaobei was about to offer a flustered explanation, Yi Qianming silenced him with a glare. Yu Lao, seeing his flustered reaction, pressed, so, that little invitation really did get to you. Xiaobei tried desperately to deny it. Feng Yu jumped in, explaining that Qingtong had probably misinterpreted Master Mingzun's intentions. She likely thought he was just chasing after her. This only made Yi Qianming even angrier. I not only told her my name. We bathed together. I let her touch me however she liked. I even gave her the Juyu Huang realm sword. What more does she want? Oh really? Feng Yu's mouth twitched. This dense sovereign. Feng Yu tried again. Qingtong probably thinks you're just admiring her, not interested romantically. Yi Qianming stubbornly refused to admit his feelings. You want me to confess my love? I, the dignified Mingzun, how could I possibly say such things? That's enough, Feng Yu sighed, looking away. Dejected, he wondered what he had done wrong. Seeing the increasingly gloomy look on his master's face, Feng Yu suggested, perhaps Qingtong has a different way of thinking. Your royal status may lead her to believe you're just another pursuer. This gave Yi Qianming pause. How could he make her reciprocate his feelings? Meanwhile, Qingtong was in the pleasure district. The fake ring shed made amazed even Chunzu. She had designed it to absorb her spiritual energy and mask its aura, making it undetectable. After she finished the fake ring, she resumed her Qingtong disguise. Chunzu fretted, are you afraid he won't find you? You're practically announcing yourself as Qingtong. Qingtong, however, had her own plans. Having looted the Qianyu imperial treasury, she needed to sell the goods quickly. Chunzu muttered, you're playing with fire again. Suddenly, she overheard discussions about Bei Dao, the Qianyu imperial family's protector, being challenged. In their search for the culprit, the imperial family had summoned Chu Lao, but he was badly injured by a mysterious Sheng Zun expert, making them fear Mingzun. Both Qingtong and Chunzu were shocked. Since when is he that strong? Chunzu scoffed. Sheng Zun. As if, after thinking it through, however, Qingtong realized that only that man was capable of injuring the imperial family's protector and intimidating Chu Lao. A chilling thought arose. Juwu Mountain Mingzun, could they be the same person? Qingtong's blood ran cold. Since Yi Qianming was handling the stolen goods, she should leave them for him. Not far off, Jizun assassins were watching Qingtong. Knowing she was being followed, she headed for the main city. The assassins were puzzled when she walked right into their territory. She suddenly appeared on the city wall. Are you looking for me? With a casual wave of her hand, she activated what appeared to be an ordinary confinement formation. The assassins simply scoffed. Killing her would be easy. Qingtong assessed them, wondering why the Jizun assassin guild was targeting her, Ziyi Guitong. They didn't know the formation was just a diversion, a convenient excuse to kill. A cruel smile played on her lips. She summoned a sword. The assassins, initially unconcerned, were now wary. Before they could react, Qingtong had vanished, a blow of color. Needles rained down. Their leader was instantly riddled with them. Qingtong's voice was cold. Last chance. Who sent you? The assassins were stunned by her prowess. Such strength for a Wu Jiang. Qingtong, wasting no time, prepared to strike with her dual swords. Chunzu, watching the fight, was completely lost. She had divine weapons and king-level power. Why was she being pressured like this? Qingtong was getting increasingly annoyed. Her power was fading. She was about to collapse. Suddenly, Zhugen felt a pang of regret. Remembering Yi Qianming's instructions to protect Qingtong, he knew this woman was too important. They were all doomed if anything happened to her. He focused his spiritual power, and a blazing fire erupted around him. A red-haired youth materialized. Qingtong noticed Chunzu's transformation. Just as the youth prepared to strike, a cold voice stopped him. Don't interfere. He too was surprised. It turned out that he was the mastermind, using the assassins as pawns in his game. A grey-robed man jumped down. The assassins were stunned. Why would she choose this location to fight? Spiritual energy flowed into his sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Bo Qian. Yi Qianming was the one who'd hired the assassins. Trapped within the formation, the man's screams of pain echoed, his struggles futile. Qingtong inwardly smirked. She hadn't expected the techniques had taught her to be so effective. Chunzu rushed over, crying, Master. She almost died. Don't you care? She pinched his face. I sensed a surge of power from her just now. Did you really think she was going to die? Besides, why would I care about that idiot? Qingtong's strength had partially recovered, reaching mid-level Sheng Zun. She was still uneasy. She needed to recover her full strength as quickly as possible. Chen Zhu suddenly yelled, "What are you doing?" Zhan Enyu anxiously explained that the commotion was because a Qianyu Branch Academy instructor had gone missing. He added, with a cautious glance towards Yi Qianming. Yi Qianming was staring intently at Qingtong. Qingtong's heart sank. An idea came to her. "I'll handle rescuing the instructor. You go after the others." Seeing Qingtong's delicate frame, he knew she cared deeply. Qingtong grabbed the man's hand. "Leave them. He's hurt." Their eyes met, and Yi Qianming froze. Qingtong ripped open his clothes. The mighty Ming Zun, being undressed by a woman. Not only was he being groped by this hooligan, but she also had the nerve to look at him with a pitiful expression. Wei Qin's jaw dropped. He'd never seen anything so scandalous. Yi Qianming was fuming. This woman had been taking advantage of him this entire time. Every single encounter was a new type of exploitation. Qingtong blushed. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, as she checked his meridians. A familiar sensation made Yi Qianming shiver. The places she touched burned. He didn't understand what she was doing. Qingtong cursed him inwardly. "Are your meridians forged from iron? Why can't I get the energy to flow?" As her hands moved lower, Yi Qianming cried out. "Hey! What are you doing?" Qingtong put on a pitiful act. "What? I'm healing you. Are you trying to accuse me of something?" Feng Yu was suddenly attacked by the assassins. Qingtong sensed the danger and knew time was running out. Her red pupils glowed. Chen Zhu transformed into a cannonball, launching himself at the assassins. "Stop her!" Chen Zhu's panicked voice came from within the barrier. "She's crazy. These aren't Sheng-level assassins." Qingtong used the Tong Shu. Tong Guang Hua Shu. The assassins cried out in agony. Feng Yu attacked recklessly, disregarding his own safety. Yi Qianming observed the battle, his face impassive. Is this truly the extent of her abilities? Chen Zhu was terrified by the sudden violence. Qingtong roared, "If you can't stop them, they'll cook you. I didn't raise you to be a useless leech. Do your job." Chen Zhu, finally getting serious, unleashed his spiritual power. The air crackled around him. Qingtong instructed, "Finish this quickly. We don't want to hurt them too badly." Yi Qianming's meridians had been tampered with. Chen Zhu transformed, his purpled spiritual energy materializing into a massive dragon, which coiled around the assassins. Chen Zhu's arrival turned the tide of the battle. Feng Yu struck down an assassin, who was then grabbed by another. "Hurry! Kill the target." To their astonishment, the assassin wouldn't die. Sensing the danger, Yi Qianming urged Qingtong to flee. Qingtong looked at him. How could she just leave him? Seeing her hesitate, Yi Qianming became even more determined. He would rather die than see her captured. Could he truly abandon her? He'd tricked and harmed her countless times, yet she'd always forgiven him. He could kill her with a flick of his wrist. Qingtong suddenly asked, "Do you truly not resent me, for everything I've done, for all the danger I've put you in?" Yi Qianming answered sincerely, "No matter what, it was my own misjudgment. I'd never blame you." A wave of sadness washed over Qingtong. The assassins were getting closer. Qingtong seemed to have made up her mind. "Close your eyes," she said, a resolute look on her face. Yi Qianming, feigning ignorance, didn't understand her intentions. He was preparing to unleash his spiritual power. This made Qingtong anxious. This man is so troublesome, she thought. She ripped her mask off, and embraced him tightly. Their lips met, and his body trembled. Yi Qianming was confused. Why was she giving him her remaining spiritual energy? The transferred power suddenly surged back. She wants my power." He pushed her away. Understanding dawned, and Yi Qianming took charge. Qingtong felt a rush of energy, almost too much to bear. Uncontrollable power coursed through her veins. The assassins were momentarily stunned by the sudden power surge. "We shouldn't kill her. It's too dangerous." Zhu Gan pulled Yi Qianming to safety. He casually waved his sleeve, and the approaching assassins were incinerated. He looked at Yi Qianming. "Teach me your strongest move." He was a volcano about to erupt. Due to his unique constitution, Yi Qianming only had one technique, which only he could use. Qingtong, however, was insistent. Seeing her desperation, he relented. Red trees materialized, their branches reaching for the heavens, an embodiment of both attack and defense. Zan Qianzhe. Qianxing Kei Di Lai. As the formation appeared, the movements of the Zan Qianzhu unfolded before Qingtong. Understanding flashed in her eyes. She grasped two swords. First move of Zan Qianzhu. Zhuqian. With that single strike, the world trembled. A terrifying power, capable of splitting the heavens, was unleashed, instantly obliterating the semi-Sheng assassins. Bei Qin and Chun Zhu were awestruck. Feng Yu was also shocked. That's Master's ultimate move. Ziyi knows it. Cheng Yang dissipated, and Qingtong collapsed. Watching her execute the move, Yi Qianming felt a surge of emotion. She's mine. The poison within him was purged by the force of the attack. His gaze was locked on her. Qingtong, weakened, leaned against him. It was the first time she'd leaned on him so unguardedly, like a tired little animal. Qingtong was surprised by the sheer power. Such a casual attack, yet so devastating. If only you were weaker, she sighed. Yi Qianming was taken aback. Weaker? Isn't it better to be strong in this world? For the first time, Qingtong opened up about her true feelings. If only you were weaker, I could keep you by my side, and I wouldn't have to. She didn't finish her sentence. Yi Qianming's eyes widened. She wants to keep me by her side. She really does, but you're too strong, too much for me to control. I hate feeling so helpless. Yi Qianming was ecstatic. She wants me to stay. But she's afraid because I'm too powerful. He declared boldly, my power might be overwhelming, but you're welcome to stay by my side. Qingtong gave a wry smile. His words seemed like a fantasy. Thank you, Zunzu. She leaned closer, resting her head on his chest. His body stiffened. Yi Qianming, oblivious to her discomfort, was wrestling with his own internal conflict. Why is it so hard to be near her? Could it be I? Xiaobei excitedly pointed out that Feng Yu was staring, winking. See? It's love. Zan Enyu, however, was repulsed. They are brothers. This is wrong. I can't watch. Qingtong took out a nourishing pill, and gave it to Yi Qianming. He opened his mouth obediently and swallowed it. Only Qingtong on the entire continent possessed such a pill. Who would have imagined that the cold and ruthless Ming Zun would show such a tender side? The scene was excruciating for Yu Wenmo, who was burning with jealousy. His spiritual form solidified. This medicine is a modified version of an ancient formula. I'm the first to try it. Yi Qianming's expression turned serious, as he instructed him to keep the pill refining a secret. He should use his Zi identity for all external matters. And he'd take responsibility should anything happen. Qingtong was touched by his concern. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. This was the second time he'd shown such care. The first was about the Qianyang Mi, but this felt different, sincere. His heart was pounding. Yi Qianming, with all seriousness, promised to always protect her. He didn't notice her tears. Suddenly, she kissed him on the cheek, surprising him. Looking at him, she whispered, "Thank you." The sincerity in her eyes made Yi Qianming blush. He stammered, asking her to let go. Meanwhile, at the Dongli Kingdom's palace, the man paced back and forth, plotting against Shen Fa. Liu Wengyi was worried. They were losing. Suddenly, applause echoed through the hall. Qingtong had appeared. Her sudden arrival startled the prince, who ordered his guards to attack and kill her. A strange silence ensued. No one moved to obey his orders. They simply froze. You useless bunch. He raged inwardly. Do I have to do everything myself? Just kill her. Do you need my permission? He was also furious. How dare these insignificant nobodies defy him? No wonder he couldn't find her. She was hiding. He grabbed Yi Qianming's hand. Let her go. It'll help. Seeing the fear in Qingtong's eyes, his heart softened. Don't worry, I'm here. He gently stroked her hair. Xiao Qianming glared at him. Do you have to flirt with everyone you see? Are you that attention-starved? He thought angrily. Qingtong's killing intent surged. Countless shadowy figures surrounded them, forcing everyone to kneel before Qingtong. She took out the antidote and offered it. Yi Qianming, however, stopped her, angrily demanding to know what she was doing. That was forbidden. Flustered, Ming Zun raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. Zan Enyu swiftly swallowed the antidote. This appeased Yi Qianming, who proceeded to lecture him. He wanted to know why Qingtong would do such a thing. She explained that it would turn them into her spies and send a message to whoever was behind the attack. To teach her a lesson, Zunzu decided to pretend to be asleep and ignore her. He was still sulking from being abandoned earlier. Qingtong, however, didn't realize the man was awake. Xiao Qianming longed for an explanation from Qingtong, but his pride prevented him from asking. Oblivious to his inner turmoil, Xiao Qianming was already planning his revenge. As soon as he entered the protective barrier, Qingtong embraced him, her face buried in his chest. This took him by surprise. "What are you doing?" he mumbled. She looked up at him, her face close to his. "Don't you like being close to me?" This stunned Ming Zun. She likes me." A thrill shot through him. He was now allowed in her room. This was her private space, a very intimate setting. Qingtong continued her charade. "Just relax. Why are you so tense?" Yi Qianming was overwhelmed. This was too much. He pleaded for her to release him. Qingtong teased, "Why? Don't you enjoy my embrace? Who else can hold you like this?" Seeing his flustered expression, Ming Zun blushed. He stammered, let go." Qingtong, however, refused to release him. She planted a kiss on his forehead, catching him completely off guard. He touched the spot where she kissed him, speechless. "She's getting bolder," he thought. "I'm looking forward to tomorrow's class." The man's arm brushed against her, and Qingtong cried out in pain. A dark mark appeared and rapidly spread across her arm. Seeing Qingtong injured, Xiao Qianming demanded an explanation from the man. The man, however, simply turned and walked away. To be able to attend classes with Qingtong, he had to switch between being a Wang Yi and a pet. The dignified Ming Zun had been reduced to a pet. This fueled his suppressed fury, which manifested as a wave of killing intent. Qingtong, however, noticed that the man was about to collapse. She reached out and steadied him. "Don't worry. It's just a bit of poison." She showed him the fading mark on her arm. In her concern, she'd forgotten her Zi Guitong identity. Xiao Qianming revealed the man's unique constitution. His body carries a complex mix of various toxins, held in a delicate equilibrium. It's the rare Wan du physique. Qingtong had read about this in ancient texts. A fully developed Wan du physique allowed one to manipulate toxins at will, combined with potent techniques and weapons. It was incredibly powerful. This made her even more curious about what kind of hidden talents the trash class might possess. As they entered the classroom, Su Xiaoxiao greeted them and urged Qingtong to sit with her. Qingtong glanced at Xiao Qianming, puzzled. She hadn't seen him with her yesterday. Qingtong explained, "This is my beloved little treasure, my pet. He's quite useful and very obedient." Su Xiaoxiao blushed, speechless. Xiao Qianming inwardly fumed. "She's just saying that to make me jealous." Yuan, who burst into the classroom, glaring at Qingtong. He still hadn't figured out how she'd managed to break through his iron skin, and he was itching for another shot at defeating and crippling her. Qingtong simply looked at him like he was an idiot and refused. She glanced at Xiao Qianming, a silent dare for him to try stealing from her again. If he did, there would be consequences. As Yuan, who reached for Xiao Qianming, Qingtong grabbed his hand. A jolt of pain shot up his arm, and he yelped. The instructor watched, amused by Zunzu's pained expression. Yuan, who buried his face in Qingtong's chest. When the man returned to his residence, Feng Yu and Beiqin immediately bowed before Qingtong. Qingtong simply sighed. She proceeded to treat Chu Wenhao's injuries. Someone, however, had overheard them. He glared at them menacingly. Qingtong easily crushed his hand. While grateful for his attempt to help, she would not tolerate theft. He needed to ask first. Clutching his throbbing hand, the man pleaded ignorance and apologized profusely. Head only acted rashly to save his sister. He then offered up the medicine he'd been trying to steal. He, however, seemed more interested in Qingtong. He was aware of his extraordinary physique, and yet she had so easily crippled him. Qingtong ignored him and left with Chu Wenhao. Yi Qianming watched them from within the protective barrier, his brow furrowed. This child, he seems so familiar. Where have I met him before? Back at the dark sacred region, Yi Qianming addressed his men. Dispose of the bodies. I'm going after those fools. Anyone who dared to lay a finger on Qingtong would face his wrath. It's time to go back, he declared. Feng Yu and Beiqin exchanged excited glances. Xiaobei, however, asked nervously, Master, are we going back to that place? Yi Qianming confirmed their return. Feng Yu and Bei Qin were ecstatic. Meanwhile, the Qianyu imperial palace was in chaos. The guards protecting Bei Dao were struggling, and the palace was under attack. The emperor was furious. Bei Jimang rushed to the emperor's aid, but he was kidnapped, and the imperial treasury plundered. Consumed by rage, the Qianyu emperor suffered a heart attack and collapsed. Had reached his limit, and had no choice but to summon the eldest to stabilize the situation. Meanwhile, in the secret realm, Qingtong lamented, I almost got myself killed. Chen Zhu scolded her for her recklessness. Qingtong looked utterly defeated. Not only had she been tricked by Yi Qianming, and was now entangled with him, she was also the one being hunted. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. Chen Zhu, seeing her misery, tried to comfort her. Master, he's really harmless. Qingtong glared at him. That's easy for you to say. He's after me. She suddenly recalled the words of the old man, who helped lift her curse. Was his name Yi Qianming? The implications of Yi Qianming protecting her hit her. He's been after me all along. That's why he's been so persistent. Not for revenge, but because he's interested. The thought made her want to tie him up. The next morning, Qingtong headed to the Yang Yao market. She saw a group of people exclaiming, look. He's so handsome. She glanced back, and froze. Ming Zun was standing right there, in the Yang Yao market. He's playing with fire, she thought. He's asking for trouble. Seeing him, Qingtong felt a knot in her stomach. Chen Zhu was equally stunned. He turned his head away. He's everywhere. There's no escaping him. It must be fate. I give up. Qingtong decided to have some fun. She put on a charming smile and approached him. Young master, aren't you a sight for sore eyes? Would you care to join me for a drink? Her words made Ming Zun's eyes widen. His hands trembled slightly, a sign of his nervousness. He also felt a sudden, strong urge to run. Sure, he agreed. Let's have a drink. His hand was caught in hers, and he couldn't pull away. A shiver went down Qingtong's spine. Is he really? Or is this some kind of act? What's he playing at? She decided to stay and see what happened. Why aren't you running? He asked, looking puzzled. Qingtong feigned innocence. Run? Why would I? I just got here. Did you really think I'd run away? Seeing her response, he relaxed slightly. Qingtong sat down, feeling increasingly uneasy. You mentioned something about raising something earlier. Yes, he replied. A beauty like you anyone would desire to keep you. He gestured to the cages filled with exotic animals. So he wanted a pet. This explained his persistent attempts to capture her. He even confessed it outright. If it's her, and as long as she doesn't misbehave, I'll allow her to stay by my side. Qingtong was hesitant. What is he thinking? I have to get out of here. He looked into her eyes. Yi Qianming. Qingtong choked on her drink. How does he know my name? He's been searching for me this whole time. But I specifically told him to dismiss those rumors. Could it be he has another motive? She quickly steered the conversation elsewhere. What brings you to the Qianyu Empire? Yi Qianming gave her a cunning smile. To capture someone, of course. He was curious to see her reaction. He even went so far as to accuse her of horrific crimes. Upon hearing that Yi Qianming was there to arrest her, Qingtong relaxed a little. If he really intended to apprehend her, he would have done so already. She was being paranoid. Yi Qianming continued drinking, making Qingtong nervous. I want to see how long your eyes can hold out, he mused. Qingtong matched him drink for drink. After a while, she began to feel the effects of the alcohol, and her vision blurred. Yi Qianming offered her another cup, but Qingtong steadfastly refused. His true intention was to protect her. Yi Qianming, sensing this, reached out. He likes men. He really does. Their fingers brushed. A strange warmth spread through Yi Qianming's chest. He blushed, averting his gaze. His heart pounded. This shameless woman. She's teasing me on purpose. Just you wait, I'll get my revenge. Qingtong, however, skillfully took his pulse. Same as always. Weak. His constitution was truly pathetic. She still couldn't pinpoint the cause. It was a strange and perplexing ailment. Despite usually hating being touched, he found a strange pleasure in her touch. Qingtong was confused. The more she investigated, the more mysterious it became. Yi Qianming asked, "How's business?" Qingtong replied, "It's fine." Inwardly, however, she was frustrated. Another dead end. Her vision was failing. She needed to restore it quickly. As she was about to excuse herself, he stopped her. Trying to run again, he placed a hand on her shoulder. "We agreed to drink until we collapse. Don't you dare break your promise. What's going on? Why won't he let me leave?" She could only blame her mother for this. He seemed to read her thoughts. "Your eyes are failing. You'll just wait until you pass out." Trapped, she decided to play along. Qingtong realized she had been tricked again. "How can I be so stupid?" Seeing her frustration, Yi Qianming smiled inwardly. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach. "Or I need the restroom." He grinned slyly. "No worries. I'll send Bei Qin." "No." Qingtong interrupted. "It's fine. I'll go with you." Qingtong realized she had fallen into his trap yet again. "I'm such an idiot." Seeing her defeated look, Yi Qianming's expression softened. He suddenly clutched his stomach again, groaning dramatically. "Ooh, this is bad." He gave her a sly glance. "It seems I'll have to trouble you." Bei Qin stared, thinking, "Master, what a drama queen." Feng Yu, however, was secretly amused. "Master, you're too much." Yi Qianming stood up. "Since Tong Tong is so insistent, I shall accompany you." Qingtong had no choice but to ask Bei Qin. "Little Bei, please." Bei Qin puffed his chest out. "Don't worry. I'll keep a very close eye on him." Yi Qianming smirked. "Let's see how you escape this time." After a while, he began to feel anxious. Feng Yu reassured him, "Master, don't worry. We've taken precautions. He won't cause trouble." Yi Qianming, however, crushed his wine glass. Qingtong was still with Bei Qin. He narrowed his eyes. He sensed a murderous aura from Bei Qin. What was he up to? He reached out and grabbed Yi Qianming's hand, a gesture that made Yu Lao want to chop his hand off. Yi Qianming was annoyed. He placed the ring on the table. "I'm taking you somewhere to meet some friends." Intrigued, Yi Qianming allowed himself to be led away. They arrived at a certain room. Yi Qianming immediately felt uneasy. Several men rushed towards him. He stared at them in shock. Killing intent exploded from him. He turned to look for Qingtong, but she was gone. Shed abandoned him again. Hearing the explosions behind him, the man was enraged, and the consequences would be severe. Chunzu, terrified, suddenly realized that he and Zhugan might be paired together. Qingtong slapped the idiot. He was ordered to gather all the refining equipment. Each piece was huge, capable of holding hundreds of people. Chunzu was astonished. Where did she get all these high-grade tools? Qingtong, her face covered in flaking makeup, answered, "They are for traps, obviously." Yi Qianming arrived at the meeting point, flustered. "Zitong. You couldn't wait to get rid of me again, could you?" He was convinced Shed faked being sick. "What are you talking about?" Bei Qin and Feng Yu asked, completely baffled. "Master, what happened?" Yi Qianming was frustrated. "She brought me to a brothel. Do you get it?" Xiao Bei was furious. "I'm going to tear her limb from limb. I'll make her suffer." Yi Qianming's anger intensified. "How dare you speak of her that way?" "I won't allow it." Bei Qin sensed something was off. Could Master possibly have feelings for Ziyi? Yi Qianming's reaction confirmed his suspicions. He remembered the conversation he'd had with Feng Yu. Does Master like Ziyi? He thought about the woman's audacity, her mischievous, devil-may-care attitude, her exaggerated, playful reactions every time she saw him. He couldn't deny it any longer. He was in love. Bei Qin cautiously inquired, "Master, do you like Ziyi?" Feng Yu quickly covered his mouth. "Are you trying to get us killed?" "Don't be so reckless." Feng Yu, terrified, pulled Xiao Bei away. This snapped Yi Qianming out of his thoughts. "Like her," Feng Yu explained, "if you're constantly concerned about someone's well-being, and easily angered by anything they do." Feng Yu believed that was love, and looked at Yi Qianming expectantly. Yi Qianming suddenly understood. If I love her, then I must have her. That woman had made the first move on him. Now that he'd acknowledged his feelings, he wouldn't let her go. Late that night, he went to the Qianyu Imperial Palace underground vault. Qingtong appeared in front of some ancient writing. She quickly set up her formations, easily bypassing the security measures, and went inside. Qingtong frowned. The Qianyu imperial family is surprisingly careful. They even have a barrier protecting this place. It was a special energy barrier that could only be deactivated by royal blood. Chen Zhu thought they were stuck. Qingtong smirked. There are other ways. Besides blood, there's medicine. She took out a few shu-mi rings and casually tossed them inside. The rings instantly exploded. She was testing explosives. She had instructed her men to refine shu-mi rings and distribute them while she gathered the ingredients from the vault. Time passed as she meticulously arranged the ingredients according to the ancient recipe. Chen Zhu asked suspiciously, "Do you even know how to refine medicine?" Of course she did. She was following the instructions to create medicine to help her grandfather recover. The most important, final step was to infuse the medicine with the energy of heaven and earth, maximizing its potency. As she carefully added the ingredients, the roof was suddenly blown off. Both Qingtong and Chen Zhu stared, wide-eyed. The Qian Xingguo was finally ready. Lao Sen cried out excitedly as the cauldron exploded. Chen Zhu, having witnessed countless explosions, chuckled. This is the first time I've seen Qingtong mess up this badly. He didn't notice the shadow descending from above. Without warning, it crashed down, pinning him to the ground. A blood-curdling scream echoed. That night, the medicine was finally complete. Qingtong's eyes snapped open. Seeing the finished product, she cried, finally. Chen Zhu breathed a sigh of relief. After numerous explosions and wasted ingredients, he could finally relax. Just as Qingtong was about to down the medicine in one gulp, Xiao Zhu suddenly plopped onto the table. The medicine for her eyes was also ready. Chen Zhu frantically searched for it, and Qingtong joined him. Amidst the chaos, she discovered a letter. It was a recommendation to the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Remembering the old man from Heiyu, Xiao Zhu figured he must have been impressed by Qingtong's natural talent, and decided to send her a recommendation. Suddenly, a voice startled him. Several figures materialized in the room. To their surprise, it was Luo Qingtong. Meanwhile, Xiaobei was frantically looking for Feng Yu. Since their last encounter, Feng Yu had removed the seal. Now, traces of Juyu Huang realm energy lingered in the river. He was panicking because he couldn't swim. A sudden splash made him think Feng Yu had. Turning around, he found Zhuofei smiling at him. Remembering what happened at Dai Sifang made Xiaobei shudder. Flustered, Zhuofei explained he'd been about to rescue him, but Feng Yu had intervened. Feng Yu demanded angrily, "Why did you hurt Xiaobei? If anything happens to him, you'll answer to me." After all, he was Bei Ke subordinate. Feng Yu, however, was roughly pushed aside. He wasn't worthy of being near Xiaobei. Suddenly, Xiaobei resurfaced. Noticing the tears in Feng Yu's eyes, Feng Yu pulled Xiaobei into his arms. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have left." Seeing him cry, Xiaobei felt a pang of guilt, which he didn't understand. Zhuofei watched them, a warm feeling spreading in his heart. Seeing them embrace, however, filled him with a strange sense of jealousy. Xiaobei, startled by Zhuofei's actions, stared at him with wide, surprised eyes. He couldn't fathom the trauma Zhuofei must have endured at Dai Sifang. He forced a smile and explained. Xiaobei finally admitted he'd overreacted. Also, because he couldn't swim, he'd asked Zhuofei to check the water for any remnants of Juyu Huang realm energy. Feng Yu cursed Xiaobei's stupidity. As Zhuofei entered the water, Xiaobei suddenly pushed him. Feng Yu reacted on instinct. To Xiaobei's shock, Feng Yu effortlessly lifted a huge boulder and hurled it into the water. Zhuofei, still submerged, was completely oblivious to the incoming danger. Thousands of miles away, Feng Yu had assembled his men and surrounded the Luo residence. The Wang clan's forces had failed to capture the crown prince. He was now Qingtong's hostage, a bargaining chip against them. The Wang clan reported this to Qianyu. After listening to Yu Wenzu's desperate pleas, the Qianyu emperor ordered him to retrieve the crown prince and destroy the Luo family. The man stood before the Luo residence. Qingtong's formations were a joke to him. With a casual wave of his hand, the formations shattered, and spiritual energy erupted from the Luo residence. The man raised his hand, a cold, merciless look in his eyes. "Show no mercy," he commanded. He stormed into the residence, his sights set on Luo Lao Yizi. Zhan Yu charged at him, only to be swatted away like a fly. The last defender was dealt with just as he reached the entrance. He activated a formation. He was surprised. This small Luo family residence had surprisingly strong defenses. He channeled his spiritual power, summoning an enormous energy shield. It was his ultimate move. Yi Jian Cheng Cheng. Suddenly, A sword beam from the Luo family sword shattered his defenses. Qingtong, disguised as Ziyi, appeared before him. Countless figures emerged from within the Luo residence. He instructed his men to prepare. He would handle these intruders himself. Chunzu, worried about Qingtong's condition after she ingested so much potent medicine, urged her to be careful. Qingtong brushed his concerns aside. The man was taken aback. Ziyi Guitong was actually defending the Luo family. Ziyi's identity was extremely sensitive. He proceeded with caution. Is there anything I can do to help? His dual swords transformed, becoming lethal weapons. A chilling killing intent radiated from Qingtong, blanketing the entire Luo residence. The man revealed himself. I am Yu Wenzu of the Qianyu imperial family. This only intensified Qingtong's killing intent. His sword technique was easily deflected. As the mist cleared, his protective armor was revealed. Xiaozu warned, Master, careful. That's Wu Di armor. The man laughed maniacally. A mere armor. You think him afraid? He attacked, but his blows didn't faze the man. He raised his hand and sent Qingtong flying with a single punch. A massive tiger materialized behind him, radiating spiritual energy. The tiger pounced. Chunzu, scared witless, flew from his hiding place. Master! Help! He wanted to help, but Qingtong ordered him to stay back. He was curious about the formations, and wanted to test if the Yin Hun Muse would attribute could absorb the potent spiritual energy present. Qingtong watched the approaching tiger and sneered. You're gravely injured, yet you still insist on using spiritual power. You're courting death. Her red pupils glowed, the mark of a ruthless gambler. Spiritual energy flooded her sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Fa Ju. An immense force collided with the tiger's paw. The tiger howled in pain. The next day, a group of uninvited guests gathered at the gates of the Luo residence. The Luo family is doomed because of Luo Qingtong. Pledge your loyalty to Second Miss before it's too late. The same people who were once arrogant and dismissive, writing off Luo Qingtong as worthless, were now groveling and begging for mercy. It turned out that after settling things at Juwu Mountain, Qingtong had returned to Luo Fu. With a single look, the man was immediately subdued by her tears. Qingtong, however, poured the Yixiang head brought over them, and ordered the war slaves, since they are so eager to join us, let them have their fill. She then had them locked up. Go tell Luo Shenning that she and her mother will pay for what they did to me and the Luo family. Inside the Luo residence, Luo Lao Yizi's face was pale and gaunt. Seeing the state of the house, he weakly asked, what happened? The staff were all kneeling, trembling. The steward explained that Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation was rapidly dissipating. He would soon be a cripple. The news was a blow to Qingtong. Touching Luo Lao Yizi's pale face, she understood his suffering. His cultivation had dropped to the 6th level of Wuzong, and was still falling. This filled Qingtong with rage. Who would devise such a cruel and insidious plan? The steward recounted everything. It was Luo Shenning's scheme. After Luo Lao Yizi collapsed, she took control, spreading rumors that Qingtong was to blame. Qingtong, however, didn't believe that Luo Shenning was acting alone. She lacked the courage and intelligence for this. It was the Qianyu imperial family's doing. She was merely a pawn. Luo Lao Yizi suddenly stirred. Seeing Qingtong safe and well, he was relieved. He blamed himself for his reckless actions, which caused his coma and all of Qingtong's worry. Qingtong, seeing his regret, comforted him, Grandpa, please don't worry. I'll take care of everything. Luo Lao Yizi chuckled. Losing some cultivation is nothing. As long as you're all right. Tears welled up in Qingtong's eyes. Luo Lao Yizi had done so much for her. How could she ever repay his kindness? She held his hand. Don't worry, Grandpa. I'll look after the Luo family. I'll also help you recover. You'll be stronger than before. At Luo Shenning's residence, the Luo Fu plaque was displayed prominently. Inside, Bai Lian and her family were celebrating. They were now in control of the Luo family, toasting Qingtong's misfortune. Suddenly, the sound of galloping horses interrupted their festivities. By order of eldest Miss, we're here to arrest everyone from the second branch and confiscate all assets. Bai Lian's mother was livid. The war slave displayed the imperial edict, filling the room with fear. Bai Lian was terrified. She was shocked to learn that a simple guard possessed the power of a 5th level Wuhu. How does Luo Qingtong command such powerful guards? Seeing their hesitation, the war slave marched forward, and Bai Lian and her family scrambled back in terror. Bai Lian frantically glanced around, then pushed her own father towards the war slave. Amidst the chaos, the war slave easily subdued him. During the retreat, Bai Lian even threw her maidservants at the guards, willing to sacrifice anyone to save herself. Screams of terror and rage came from the front entrance. They were imprisoned, but Luo pleaded with the guards, citing his loyalty to Wang Xifeng and the Qianyu emperor. The war slaves informed Qingtong that Bai Lian had fled to Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Upon arriving at the dungeon, Qingtong witnessed the man's pleas. She sneered. "Your own father is being used as a scapegoat, and you still expect him to come and save you." The man, however, believed everything was Ning Er's fault. His eyes were cold. He wouldn't spare anyone who harmed his grandfather, especially those manipulating things from the shadows. He insulted the man, calling him worse than an animal for using his own father as a shield. Oblivious, Luo continued to argue, but Qingtong simply produced a few pills. She ordered the first war slave to give them to Luo Lao, and to release the decoy outside. Luo Lao paled upon hearing this. As the man swallowed the pills, his strength surged. However, using this power would come with dire consequences. If he chose not to use it, he'd turn into a beast. Desperately, Luo Lao screamed, "Ning Er, you won't get away with this." Qingtong paid him no mind. Bai Lian was her next target. Late at night, Qingtong sat in her study, examining the account books. Zhan Enyu reported that Luo Xinning had returned to the Luo residence, accompanied by an instructor from Qianyu Branch Academy. Strangely, the instructor appeared to be utterly devoted to Qingtong. Curious, Qingtong wanted to see this for herself. She instructed Zhan Enyu to compile a list of everything she'd received as gifts from the royal family and nobles over the years. She planned to give them all to Bai Lian. Meanwhile, Bai Lian anxiously paced her room. She was sure Qingtong would come for her. Her father's disappearance was Qingtong's fault. Chu Lao Ma was away, but she swore he'd pay dearly if he dared return and cause trouble. Bai Lian put on a pitiful expression, hoping to garner Chu Lao's sympathy. He believed that she was simply too kind, and was thus an easy target for Qingtong's bullying. A sudden crash startled them. The Luo family plaque lay shattered on the floor. Qingtong, on horseback, ordered the war slaves to destroy the plaque. She slapped Bai Lian, who had caked her face with makeup, for daring to call herself a Luo. The war slaves eagerly obeyed. "Stop. That plaque was a gift from the Qianyu Branch Academy to Miss." Qingtong ignored the outcry. Bai Lian launched into a dramatic tirade. "Big sister. What are you doing?" Their eyes met. The Luo family plaque was all that remained. "You've been expelled. You're no longer worthy of this plaque." Qingtong had her men bring out a new one. The two characters Dao Fu on the plaque enraged Bai Lian. Consumed by fear and anger, she shrieked, "I'm your sister. How dare you humiliate me like this? Don't you have a heart?" Qingtong was even more furious at her theatrics. Bai Lian delivered another tearful, over-the-top performance. "Big sister, you're so cruel. You kicked me out, and now you're still after me. Look at what you've done to our family. Grandpa's failing cultivation is all your fault." Her acting deserved an award. Qingtong would have been fine if Luo Lao Yizi hadn't been brought up, but his name enraged her. Zhan Enyu stepped forward. "What have you done? Do you dare to tell the truth?" Bai Lian's face changed faster than the flip of a switch. One moment, she was fiercely defending her disciple and showering him with affection. The next, she was being slapped. It turned out that Qingtong not only exposed her shameful acts, but also presented undeniable proof. Just now, faced with the accusations, Bai Lian had shamelessly tried to hide behind Chu Lao. He couldn't stand to see his beloved disciple being humiliated. To Qingtong, Bai Lian was a spoiled brat, flaunting the fifth prince's favor and causing trouble. Qingtong frowned. "And who is this mutt? Luo family business doesn't concern him." Bai Lian twisted Qingtong's words, emphasizing that Chu Lao was a Qianyu Branch Academy instructor. Qingtong inwardly scoffed at the old fool for being tricked by Bai Lian and acting as a shield. "Is he stupid?" Qingtong sneered, showing no respect. This angered Chu Lao, who threatened to teach her a lesson. Qingtong, however, remained unfazed. Chun Zu really wanted to teach that old man a lesson. Qingtong stopped him. She preferred to watch the drama unfold rather than get involved in a brawl. She ordered the war slaves to bring the account books. Since Chu Lao wants to defend his disciple, let's settle these accounts for her. She then threw Zhao Mu into Bai Lian's arms, causing her to stumble. When Chu Lao saw the accounts, he panicked. He tried to intervene but failed. He insisted Qingtong had fabricated the accounts, claiming none of the items existed. Knowing Bai Lian all too well, Qingtong challenged, "Do you dare let me search your residence?" The war slaves were dispatched. Bai Lian placed all her hope in Chu Lao, her heart pounding, her face draining of color. "Those were all gifts from you." This sealed her fate. Qingtong didn't hesitate. "Gifts from the Qianyu imperial family. You think I'd just give them away? Do you expect me to return them?" Bai Lian was rendered speechless, tears streaming down her face. "You're just jealous that I'm more talented." Suddenly, a shout interrupted her crocodile tears. "Why are you using your mother's money?" Bai Lian insisted that Qingtong had forced her to accept the treasures. Qingtong was exasperated. "Do I have rocks in my head? Forcing you to accept gifts? Just who is the crazy one here?" She ordered the war slaves to confiscate everything. Anyone who obstructed them would be considered an enemy of the Qianyu imperial family. Seeing her plan crumble, Bai Lian begged Chu Lao to intervene. Chu Lao stood up, resolute. "This is simply a tactic to recover the recommendation and the heirloom." He accused Qingtong of disrespecting the imperial family, declaring she'd never be admitted to the Qianyu Academy. Qingtong simply scoffed. "That thing's been used. I don't want it. Entering Qianyu Academy depends on skill, not on your family name." She stared pointedly at his jade pendant. "Isn't this the engagement token given to me by the fifth prince?" This sent Chu Lao into a fit of rage. He ripped off the pendant, and roared at Bai Lian, "Didn't you say the Qianyu imperial family gave that to you?" Bai Lian was speechless, her face ashen. Qingtong laughed. "This is what I call reaching one's limit. I don't know about you." She slapped Bai Lian. Chu Lao had never been so humiliated. Qingtong, adding insult to injury, clapped with glee. Tossing the pendant aside, she left triumphantly. She relished the sight of others suffering while she remained untouchable. Xiaozu arrived, clapping his hooves in approval. Suddenly, the Juyu Huang realm seal trembled. Qingtong was startled. Xiaozu jumped. Why was the seal, after being dormant for so long, suddenly active again? Qingtong was busy lecturing Bai Lian, but vanished in a flash. Something was happening with the Juyu Huang realm seal. The commotion was caused by the man's return. Yi Qianming was consumed by thoughts of Qingtong. Back in the dark sacred region, throngs of people bowed before the returning sovereign. His arrival immediately calmed the turbulent energy. Feng Yu and Bai Shou exchanged knowing glances. Yu Lao teased him, "I thought you were lured away by that invitation." The man simply raised his hand, revealing the magnificent dragon fang sword. This surprised Yu Lao. He hadn't expected him to actually come back to the dark sacred region. Yu Lao stared at the ring. "Don't tell me you came back just for that ring. You were really hooked by that little invitation, weren't you?" Xiaobei boldly declared, "Master, that invitation wasn't from a woman." Just as Xiaobei was about to stammer out an explanation, Yi Qianming glared, effectively silencing him. Yu Lao, observing his flustered reaction, pressed on. "So, that little invitation really did get to you?" Xiaobei tried to deny it. Feng Yu interrupted, explaining that Qingtong probably misunderstood Master Mingzun's intentions. She probably thought he was merely pursuing her. This explanation frustrated Yi Qianming further. "Not only did I give her my name. We bathed together. I let her touch me as she pleased. I even gave her the Juyu Huang realm sword. What more could she possibly want?" Feng Yu's mouth twitched. "Really? This clueless sovereign." Feng Yu tried again. "Perhaps Qingtong views your actions as admiration, rather than romantic interest." Yi Qianming stubbornly refused to acknowledge his feelings. "Admit my feelings. I, the dignified Mingzun, could never say such things." "Enough," Feng Yu sighed, turning away. Dejected, he wondered where had gone wrong. Seeing his master's increasingly gloomy expression, Feng Yu suggested, "Master, perhaps Qingtong has a different perspective. Maybe she sees you, with your royal status, as just another pursuer." This made Yi Qianming think. How could he make her return his affections? At that moment, Qingtong was in the pleasure district. The fake ring Shed crafted was impressive, even to Chun Zhu. Shed designed it to absorb her spiritual energy and alter its aura, rendering it undetectable. Once the ring was finished, she resumed her Qingtong disguise. Chunzu worried, "Are you trying to get caught? You're practically announcing yourself as Qingtong." Qingtong, however, had a plan. She'd entered the Qianyu imperial treasury and needed to sell her loot quickly. Chunzu mumbled under his breath, "You're playing with fire again." Suddenly, she overheard people talking about Bei Dao, protector of the Qianyu imperial family, being challenged. The imperial family, searching for the culprit, had summoned Chu Lao, who was subsequently severely injured by a mysterious Sheng Zun expert, striking fear into their hearts and invoking the name of Ming Zun. Qingtong and Chun Zu were both stunned. When did he get so strong? Chun Zu scoffed. Sheng Zun. Please, but after thinking about it, Qingtong realized the only one capable of injuring the imperial family's protector and scaring Chu Lao was that man. A terrifying thought struck her. Juwu Mountain Ming Zun, could they be one and the same? Qingtong's blood ran cold. Since Yi Qianming was already handling the stolen goods, she should leave them be. Not far away, Jizun assassins were watching Qingtong. Knowing she was being followed, she headed towards the main city. The assassins were confused when she entered their territory. Suddenly, she appeared on the city wall. Looking for me. With a casual wave, she activated what seemed to be an ordinary confinement formation. The assassins merely scoffed. She'd be easy to kill. Qingtong looked them over, wondering what the Jizun assassin guild wanted with her, Ziyi Gui Tong. Unbeknownst to them, the formation was a diversion, an excuse to kill. A sinister smile curved her lips. She summoned a sword. The assassins, who were initially unconcerned, were now wary. Before they could react, Qingtong was gone, a blow of colors. Needles rained down. In an instant, their leader was riddled with them. Last chance, Qingtong said coldly. Who sent you? The assassins were shocked by her strength. Such power from a Wu Jiang. Qingtong, wasting no time, prepared to strike with her dual swords. Chunzu watched, utterly confused. She had divine weapons and king-level strength. Why was she struggling like this? Qingtong was growing more frustrated. Her power was fading, and collapse was imminent. Suddenly, Zhu Gan was filled with regret. Remembering Yi Qianming's orders to protect Qingtong, he realized how vital she was. If anything happened to her, they were all done for. He channeled his spiritual power, and a blazing fire erupted from his body. A red-haired youth appeared. Qingtong noticed Chun Zu's transformation. Just as the youth was about to attack, a cold voice stopped him. Don't interfere. He too was surprised. It was him pulling the strings, using the assassins as pawns. A grey-robed man jumped down. The assassins were stunned. Why was she choosing to fight here? Spiritual energy flowed into his sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Bo Qian. Yi Qianming was their employer. Trapped in the formation, the man screamed in agony. His struggles were useless. Qingtong inwardly smirked. She hadn't expected his techniques to be so powerful. Chunzu came running, crying. Master! She almost died. Don't you care? She pinched his face. I could feel her power surge just now. Did you really think she was about to die? And besides, why would I care about that idiot? Qingtong's strength had recovered somewhat, reaching the mid-level Sheng Zun realm. She still felt uneasy, though. She needed to regain her full strength quickly. Suddenly, Chunzu yelled, "What are you doing?" Zhan Enyu quickly explained that the commotion was because a Qianyu branch academy instructor was missing. He cautiously glanced at Yi Qianming as he spoke. Yi Qianming's eyes were fixed on Qingtong. Qingtong's heart sank. Suddenly, an idea struck her. I'll handle the instructor's rescue. You guys go after them. Seeing Qingtong's delicate form, he realized she truly cared. Qingtong grabbed his hand. Don't bother. Hair's injured. Their eyes met, and Yi Qianming froze. Qingtong ripped his clothes open. The mighty Ming Zun, undressed by a woman. Not only was he being groped by this hooligan, but she also had the audacity to look at him with pity. Bei Qin's jaw dropped. He'd never seen anything so scandalous in his life. Yi Qianming was seething with anger. This woman had been taking advantage of him from the start. Every encounter was another opportunity for her to exploit him. Qingtong blushed. I'm so sorry, she stammered as she examined his meridians. A familiar sensation made Yi Qianming tremble. Her touch burned like fire. He couldn't understand what she was doing. Qingtong cursed him inwardly. Are your meridians made of iron? I can't get the energy to flow. As her hand slid lower, Yi Qianming shouted, "Hey! What do you think you're doing?" Qingtong put on a pitiful act. "What? I'm trying to heal you. Are you trying to frame me for something?" Suddenly, Feng Yu was attacked by assassins. Qingtong sensed the danger and knew she was running out of time. Her red pupils flashed. Chunzu transformed into a cannonball, launching himself towards the assassins. "Stop her!" Chunzu's panicked cries came from within the barrier. "That woman's crazy." They are and Sheng level assassins. Qingtong used the Tong Shu. Tong Guang Hua Shu. The assassins screamed in pain. Feng Yu attacked relentlessly, ignoring his own wounds. Yi Qianming watched impassively. Is that really all she can do? Chunzu was terrified by the sudden brutality. Qingtong bellowed, "Chunzu, if you can't hold them off, you're going in the stew pot. I didn't raise you to be a useless parasite. Do your job." Chunzu, finally taking things seriously, unleashed his spiritual power. The air around him crackled with energy. Qingtong instructed, "Finish them quickly, and try not to hurt them too badly." Yi Qianming's meridians were blocked. Chunzu transformed. His purpled spiritual energy materialized as a massive dragon, coiling around the assassins. Chunzu's arrival turned the tables. Feng Yu struck down an assassin, who was then grabbed by another. "Quick! Eliminate the target." To their surprise, the assassin refused to die. Sensing the danger, Yi Qianming urged Qingtong to escape. Qingtong looked at him. How could she abandon him? Seeing her hesitation, Yi Qianming's resolve hardened. He would sooner die than see her captured. Could he really leave her behind? Had tricked and harmed her so many times, and yet, she'd always forgiven him. Killing her would be effortless. Qingtong suddenly asked, "After everything I've done, after putting you in so much danger, do you truly not resent me?" Yi Qianming responded sincerely, "It was my own miscalculation. I don't blame you." A pang of guilt stabbed at Qingtong's heart. The assassins were almost upon them. Qingtong seemed to have come to a decision. "Close your eyes," she instructed, a determined look on her face. Yi Qianming, feigning ignorance, didn't understand what she was about to do. He prepared to unleash his power. This worried Qingtong. This man is so troublesome, she thought. She ripped off her mask, and pulled him into a deep embrace. Their lips met, and his body trembled. Yi Qianming didn't understand why she was transferring her remaining spiritual energy to him. Suddenly, the transferred energy surged back. She wants my power." He pushed her away. Understanding what had transpired, Yi Qianming took control. Qingtong was almost overwhelmed by the sudden influx of energy. Raw power coursed through her veins. The assassins were taken aback by the sudden surge of energy. "We shouldn't kill her. It's too dangerous." Zhu Gan pulled Yi Qianming to safety. With a casual flick of his wrist, the approaching assassins were incinerated. He looked at Yi Qianming. "Teach me your most powerful move." He was a volcano on the brink of eruption. Yi Qianming, because of his special constitution, only had one technique, which only he could utilize. Qingtong was insistent, however. Seeing her desperate plea, he relented. Towering red trees materialized, their branches reaching towards the sky, a perfect fusion of offense and defense. Zan Qianzhe. Qianxing Kei Di Lai. As the formation appeared, the complex movements of the Zan Qianzhu were projected before Qingtong. Understanding flashed in her eyes. She grabbed two swords. First move of Zan Qianzhu. Zhuqian. The world trembled before the force of her attack. A devastating power, capable of tearing the heavens asunder, was unleashed, instantly obliterating the semi-Sheng assassins. Bei Qin and Chun Zhu watched, awestruck. Feng Yu was also taken aback. That's Master's ultimate move. Ziyi knows it. Cheng Yang vanished, and Qingtong collapsed. Watching her perform the move, Yi Qianming was overcome with emotion. She's meant to be mine. The poison in his body was completely purged by the force of the attack. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Qingtong, exhausted, leaned against him. It was the first time she had unconsciously leaned on him like that, small and vulnerable. Qingtong was surprised by the raw power. Such a casual attack, yet so devastating. "If only you were weaker," she whispered. Yi Qianming was surprised. "Weaker? Isn't it better to be strong in this world?" For the first time, Qingtong revealed her true feelings. "If only you were weaker, then I could keep you safe and I wouldn't have to." She didn't finish her sentence. Yi Qianming's eyes went wide. "She wants to protect me. She really does." But you're too strong, so strong that I can't control you. And I hate that feeling of helplessness. Yi Qianming was ecstatic. She wants me to be with her. She's just afraid because I'm too powerful. He declared, my power may be overwhelming, but you are more than welcome to stay by my side. Qingtong gave him a sad smile. His words seemed like a beautiful dream, too good to be true. Thank you, Zunzu. She leaned closer, resting her head on his chest. His body stiffened. Yi Qianming, oblivious to her discomfort, was struggling with his own inner demons. Why is it so hard for me to be close to her? Is it because Xiao Bei excitedly pointed out that Feng Yu was staring at them and winked. See? It's love. Zhan Enyu was disgusted, however. They are brothers. This is so wrong. I just can't watch. Qingtong pulled out a nourishing pill and placed it in Yi Qianming's hand. He obediently opened his mouth and swallowed it. Only Qingtong possessed such pills in the entire continent. Who would have guessed the cold-blooded Ming Zun could be so gentle? This scene was torture for Yu Wenmo, who burned with jealousy. His spiritual form solidified. This pill, it's a modified, ancient recipe. I'm the first to try it. Yi Qianming's expression became serious, and he told him to keep the pill a secret. He should use his Zi identity for everything outside, and he would bear all responsibility if anything happened. Qingtong was deeply moved by his concern. She nodded, and tears welled up. It was the second time he'd shown such care for her. The first time was about the Qianyang Mi, but this felt genuine. His heart pounded in his chest. Yi Qianming promised solemnly to protect her always. He didn't notice her tears. She suddenly kissed his cheek, surprising him. Looking at him, she whispered, "Thank you." Her sincere gaze made Yi Qianming blush crimson. He stammered, asking her to let him go. Meanwhile, back at the Dongli Kingdom Palace, the man was pacing nervously, plotting against Shen Fa. Liu Wengyi was deeply troubled. They were losing the war. A burst of applause broke the tense silence. Qingtong had arrived. Her sudden appearance startled the prince, who ordered his men to kill her. A strange quiet fell. No one moved to obey. They just stood there, frozen. Useless fools. He raged internally. Do I have to do absolutely everything myself? Just kill her. Do you need my express permission to do that? He was also furious. How could these insignificant insects defy him? No wonder he couldn't find her. She was hiding. He grabbed Yi Qianming's hand. Let her go. I'll help you. Seeing Qingtong's fear, he softened. Don't worry. I'm here. He gently stroked her hair. Xiao Qianming glared. Do you have to flirt with every single person you meet? Are you that starved for attention? He was seething inside. Qingtong's killing intent spiked. Countless shadowy figures materialized around them, forcing everyone to kneel before Qingtong. She produced the antidote. Yi Qianming, however, stopped her, angrily demanding to know what she was doing. It was forbidden. Flustered, Ming Zun raised his hands in surrender. Zhan Enyu quickly swallowed the antidote. Satisfied, Yi Qianming then proceeded to lecture him. He wanted to know why Qingtong would do such a thing. She explained that this would turn them into her spies and serve as a warning to the person behind this incident. To teach Qingtong a lesson, Zunzu decided to feign sleep and ignore her. He was still sulking because she'd abandoned him earlier. Qingtong didn't realize that the man was actually awake. Xiao Qianming was waiting for an explanation, but he was too proud to ask. Unaware of his inner turmoil, Xiao Qianming was already plotting his revenge. The moment he entered the protective barrier, Qingtong embraced him, burying her face in his chest. He was startled. What are you doing? He mumbled. She looked up at him, her face very close to his. Don't you like it when I'm close to you? Ming Zun froze. She likes me. A wave of excitement washed over him. He was now allowed to be in her room. This was her private space, a deeply intimate setting. Qingtong continued her act. Relax. You're so tense. Yi Qianming was flustered. This was too much. He begged her to let him go. Qingtong teased, don't you like it when I hold you like this? Who else can I hold so closely? Seeing his embarrassment, Ming Zun blushed. Let go. Qingtong, however, refused to release him. She kissed his forehead, catching him off guard. He touched the place where she'd kissed him, stunned. She's becoming more and more bold, he thought. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow's lesson with her. The man brushed against her arm, and Qingtong cried out in pain. A dark mark appeared on her arm and began to spread rapidly. Seeing the injury, Xiao Qianming demanded an explanation from the man. The man, however, simply turned and left. To attend classes with Qingtong, had been forced to play the roles of both Wang Yi and pet. The dignified Ming Zun, reduced to a pet. This fueled his suppressed fury, unleashing a powerful wave of killing intent. Qingtong, however, noticed the man was about to collapse. She reached out and steadied him. It's nothing. Just a little bit of poison. She showed him the fading mark. In her concern, however, she'd forgotten her other identity, Zi Guitong. Xiao Qianming explained the man's unique physique. His body is host to a complex blend of toxins, existing in a delicate balance. This is the extremely rare Wan du physique. Qingtong had read about this physique in ancient texts. A fully developed Wan du physique could control toxins at will. Coupled with powerful techniques and weapons, it would make one an incredibly formidable opponent. This made her even more curious about the hidden potential of the trash class. As they entered the classroom, Xiao Xiao greeted them and invited Qingtong to sit with her. Qingtong looked at Xiao Qianming, puzzled. She hadn't seen him with her the previous day. Qingtong explained, "This is my beloved little treasure, my pet. He's very useful and obedient." Xiao Xiao blushed, speechless. Xiao Qianming was fuming. "She's just trying to make me jealous." Yuan, who burst into the classroom and glared at Qingtong. He still hadn't figured out how she'd broken through his iron skin, and was itching for another opportunity to defeat and cripple her. Qingtong just looked at him, as if he were an idiot, and flatly refused. She glanced at Xiao Qianming, daring him to try stealing something from her again. This time, there would be consequences. When Yuan, who reached for Xiao Qianming, Qingtong caught his hand. A sharp jolt of pain made him yelp. The instructor watched, highly amused by Zunzu's pained expression. Yuan, who buried his face in Qingtong's chest, seeking comfort. Back at the residence, Feng Yu and Bei Qin bowed before Qingtong. She merely sighed. She then proceeded to treat Chu Wenhao's injuries. Someone, however, had overheard their conversation. He glared at them menacingly. Qingtong casually pinched his hand, breaking it. While she appreciated the gesture, she wouldn't allow anyone to steal from her. He should have asked. The man, clutching his throbbing hand, feigned ignorance and apologized profusely. He claimed he'd acted impulsively to save his younger sister. He then offered the medicine he'd been trying to take. He, however, was more interested in Qingtong. He knew he possessed an extraordinary physique, yet she'd crippled him with such ease. Qingtong ignored him and left with Chu Wenhao. Yi Qianming, watching them from within the protective barrier, narrowed his eyes. That boy, he looks so familiar. Where have I seen him before? Back at the dark sacred region, Yi Qianming addressed his men. Dispose of the bodies. I'm going hunting for those fools. Anyone who dared harm Qingtong would face his wrath. Time to return, he announced. Feng Yu and Bei Qin exchanged excited glances. Xiao Bei, however, asked anxiously, "Master, are we going back to that place?" Yi Qianming confirmed their return. Feng Yu and Bei Qin were overjoyed. Meanwhile, the Qianyu Imperial Palace was in utter chaos. The Imperial Guards protecting Bei Dao were overwhelmed, and the palace itself was under attack. The Emperor was furious. Bei Jimang rushed to the Emperor's side, but he was kidnapped, and the Imperial Treasury ransacked. The Qianyu Emperor, in his rage, suffered a heart attack and collapsed. He was at his limit, and had no choice, but to summon the elders to help stabilize the situation. In the secret realm, Qingtong was berating herself. "I almost died." Chanzu also scolded her for her recklessness. Qingtong was miserable. Not only had she fallen into Yi Qianming's trap, and become entangled with him, she was now the hunted one. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. Chanzu, seeing her distress, tried to reassure her. "Master, don't worry, he's harmless." Qingtong glared at him. "Easy for you to say. He's hunting me." Suddenly, she recalled what the old man, who'd helped her with the curse, had said. Was his name Yi Qianming? The realization of why Yi Qianming had been protecting her dawned on her. "He's been after me all along. That's why he's so persistent. He's not after revenge, he's interested." This made her want to tie him up even more. The following morning, Qingtong went to the Yang Yao market. She saw a crowd exclaiming, "He's so handsome." She looked back, and froze. Ming Zun was there, standing in the Yang Yao market. Hes asking for trouble. Hes playing with fire, she thought. Seeing him, Qingtong felt a knot form in her stomach. Chanzu was equally shocked. He quickly turned his head away. Hes everywhere. I can't escape. It's fate. I give up. Qingtong decided to tease him. She approached him with a charming smile. Young master, you're quite the looker. Care to join me for a drink? Her words made Mingzun's eyes widen. His hands trembled slightly, betraying his nervousness. He felt a sudden urge to flee. All right, he agreed. Let's have a drink. His hand was caught in hers, and he couldn't break free. A shiver ran down Qingtong's spine. Is he really? Or is he just acting? What's his game? She decided to stay and find out. Why aren't you running? He asked, puzzled. Feigning innocence, Qingtong casually replied, run. Why would I run? I just got here. Did you really think I'd run? Seeing her reaction, he relaxed a bit. Qingtong sat down, feeling a growing unease. You said something about raising something earlier. Yes, he said, his gaze intense. A beauty like you anyone would desire to keep you. He gestured to the caged exotic animals nearby. So, he wanted a pet. That explained his persistent attempts to capture her. Head even admitted it openly. If it's her as long as she behaves, I'll let her stay by my side. Qingtong hesitated. What's he thinking? I need to get out of here. He locked eyes with her. Yi Qianming. Qingtong choked on her drink. How does he know my name? Has he been searching for me this whole time? I told him to ignore the rumors. There must be another reason. She quickly changed the subject. So, what brings you to the Qianyu Empire? Yi Qianming smiled slyly. To capture someone, of course. He was testing her reaction. He even accused her of unspeakable crimes. Upon hearing that Yi Qianming was there to arrest her, Qingtong felt a sense of relief. If he was truly there to arrest her, he would have already done so. She was just being paranoid. Yi Qianming continued drinking, making Qingtong nervous. I'm going to see how long those eyes of yours can last, he thought. Qingtong matched him drink for drink. After some time, she started feeling the effects of the alcohol. Her vision became blurry. Yi Qianming offered her another drink, which Qingtong repeatedly refused. His true intention was to protect her. Sensing this, Yi Qianming reached out. So he likes men. He really does. Their fingers brushed. A strange warmth bloomed in Yi Qianming's chest. He blushed and quickly averted his gaze. His heart pounded. This shameless woman. She's teasing me. Just you wait. I'll get you back for this. Qingtong, however, skillfully took his pulse. Same as before. Weak. His constitution was truly abysmal. She still couldn't figure out the cause. It was a strange and perplexing condition. Even though he normally hated being touched, he found he rather enjoyed her touch now. Qingtong was confused. The deeper she investigated, the more questions arose. Yi Qianming asked, how's business been? Qingtong simply said, fine. She was inwardly frustrated, however. Another dead end. Her vision was deteriorating rapidly. She needed to restore it soon. Just as she was about to excuse herself, he stopped her. Trying to run again, he placed a hand on her shoulder. We made a promise to drink until we both pass out. Don't go back on your word. What's happening? Why won't he let me leave? She blamed her mother for this predicament. He seemed to read her mind. Your eyes are about to give out. I'll just wait here until you collapse. Seeing as she was trapped, she decided to play along. Qingtong realized she'd been duped again. I'm such an idiot. Seeing her frustration, Yi Qianming secretly smiled. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach. Or I need to use the restroom. He flashed her a sly grin. Don't worry. I'll get back in. No? Qingtong interrupted. It's fine. I'll go with you. Qingtong knew she'd just walked into his trap again. I'm so stupid. Seeing her dejected expression, Yi Qianming's heart softened. Suddenly, he clutched his stomach and let out a dramatic groan. Oh no, this is bad. He gave her a sly look. It seems I'll have to trouble you. Bacon stared blankly, thinking, Master, you are such a drama queen. Feng Yu, however, was secretly amused. Master, you're too extra. Yi Qianming stood up abruptly. Since Tong Tong insists, he'll accompany you, Qingtong had no choice but to ask Bei Qin for help. Little Bei, please, Bei Qin puffed out his chest. Don't worry. I'll watch him like a hawk. Yi Qianming smirked. Let's see how you escape this time. After a while, however, he started to fidget restlessly. Feng Yu reassured him, relax, master. Everything's under control. He won't get into trouble. Yi Qianming, however, crushed the wine glass in his hand. Qingtong was still with Bei Qin. His eyes narrowed. He sensed a murderous intent from Bei Qin. What was he planning? He grabbed Yi Qianming's hand, a gesture that made Yu Lao want to chop his hand off. This irritated Yi Qianming. He placed his ring on the table. I'm taking you somewhere to meet some friends. Curious, Yi Qianming followed him. They arrived at a room. A sense of unease washed over Yi Qianming. A group of men charged at him. He stared, wide-eyed. A surge of killing intent exploded from his body. He looked around for Qingtong, but Shed vanished. Shed abandoned him again. Hearing explosions from behind, the man flew into a rage. There would be consequences. Chunzu was terrified, thinking that he and Zugan would be forced together. Qingtong slapped the idiot. He was ordered to collect all the refining equipment. Each piece was gigantic, big enough to fit hundreds of people. Chunzu marveled. How did she get so many high-grade tools? Qingtong, her face smudged with makeup, replied, for making traps, of course. A flustered Yi Qianming arrived at the meeting place. Zitong. You couldn't wait to get rid of me, could you? He was convinced Shed faked her illness. What are you talking about? Bei Qin and Feng Yu asked, bewildered. Master, what's happened? Yi Qianming was exasperated. She took me to a brothel. Understand. Xiaobei was enraged. I'll tear her to shreds. I swear, I'll make her suffer. Yi Qianming became even angrier. How dare you speak of her like that? I will not tolerate it. Bei Qin felt a knot in his stomach. Could it be that Master actually had feelings for Ziyi? Yi Qianming's outburst confirmed his suspicion. He remembered the conversation with Feng Yu. Does Master like Ziyi? He thought about how brazen that woman was. Her carefree, mischievous personality. Her animated and exaggerated expressions every time she saw him. He had to admit it. He was in love. Bei Qin asked tentatively, Master, do you like Ziyi? Feng Yu quickly covered his mouth. Do you have a death wish? Don't say such things. Feng Yu, scared witless, dragged Xiaobei away. This brought Yi Qianming back to his senses. Like her, Feng Yu explained, if you find yourself constantly worrying about someone, easily angered by their actions. Feng Yu believed this was love and looked at Yi Qianming expectantly. Yi Qianming suddenly understood. If I love her, then she must be mine. That woman had made the first move. Now that his feelings were clear, he would never let her go. Late into the night, he went to the Qianyu Imperial Palace's underground vault. Qingtong appeared before some ancient script. She quickly activated her formations, easily bypassing the security, and entered. Qingtong frowned. The Qianyu Imperial family is surprisingly thorough. They even have a barrier protecting this place. It was a special type of energy barrier, only deactivated by royal blood. Chunzu thought they were stuck. Qingtong smirked. There are other ways in. Besides blood, there's medicine. She pulled out some Shu Mi rings and casually tossed them inside. The rings exploded immediately. She'd been testing explosives. She had tasked her subordinates with refining Shu Mi rings and distributing them while she gathered the necessary medicinal ingredients from within the vault. Time passed as she meticulously laid out the ingredients according to the ancient recipe. Chunzu eyed her suspiciously. Do you even know how to refine medicine? Of course she did. She was simply following the instructions to make the medicine for her grandfather's recovery. The most important, final step was to imbue the medicine with the combined power of heaven and earth, maximizing its effectiveness. As she carefully added the herbs, the roof suddenly blew outward. Both Qingtong and Chunzu stared, wide-eyed. The Qian Xingguo was finally ready. Lao Sen cried out excitedly as the cauldron burst. Chunzu, having witnessed countless explosions, merely chuckled. That's got to be Qingtong's biggest failure yet. He didn't see the shadow descending from above. Suddenly, it landed on him, pinning him to the ground. A blood-curdling scream ripped through the air. That night, the medicine was finally finished. Qingtong's eyes snapped open. Seeing the completed medicine, she exclaimed, finally. Chunzu let out a sigh of relief. After so many explosions and wasted ingredients, he could finally relax. Just as Qingtong was about to swallow the medicine in one go, Xiaozu tumbled onto the table. The medicine for her eyes was also ready. Chunzu frantically searched for it, and Qingtong joined in. Amid the chaos, she found a letter. It was a recommendation from Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Recalling the old man from Heiyu, Xiaozu was sure that he had been impressed with Qingtong's talent, and sent a letter of recommendation. Suddenly, a voice startled him. Several figures materialized in the room. To their surprise, it was Luo Qingtong. Elsewhere, Xiaobei was desperately searching for Feng Yu. Ever since their last encounter, Feng Yu had removed the seal. Now, there were traces of Juyu Huang realm energy lingering in the river. He was panicking because he couldn't swim. Suddenly, a splash made him think that Feng Yu. He turned to find Zhu Fei standing there, smiling at him. Remembering the events at Dai Sifang made Xiaobei shudder. Flustered, Zhu Fei quickly explained that had been about to rescue him, but Feng Yu had stopped him. Feng Yu angrily demanded, "Why did you hurt Xiaobei? You'll answer to me if anything happens to him." He was Bei Ke's subordinate, after all. Feng Yu, however, was unceremoniously pushed aside. He didn't deserve to be anywhere near Xiaobei. Suddenly, Xiaobei surfaced. Noticing tears glistening in Feng Yu's eyes, Feng Yu pulled Xiaobei into a hug. "It's all my fault. I shouldn't have left you alone." Seeing Feng Yu cry, Xiaobei felt a pang of guilt, a feeling he didn't quite understand. Zhu Fei watched them, warmth blooming in his chest. Seeing them embrace, however, sparked an unfamiliar jealousy. Xiaobei, startled by Zhu Fei's actions, stared at him, wide-eyed. He couldn't imagine how traumatic the experience at Dai Sifang must have been. He forced a smile and explained what had happened. Xiaobei finally admitted that Head overreacted. Also, since he was unable to swim, Head asked Zhu Fei to check the water for any Juyu Huang realm energy remnants. Feng Yu mentally cursed Xiaobei for being so foolish. Just as Zhu Fei entered the water, Xiaobei suddenly pushed him. Feng Yu reacted instinctively. Xiaobei watched in disbelief as Feng Yu effortlessly lifted a giant boulder and hurled it into the water. Zhu Fei, who was still underwater, was completely oblivious to the danger hurtling towards him. Thousands of miles away, Feng Yu had his men surround the Luo residence. The Wang clan army had failed to capture the crown prince. Qingtong now held him hostage, a bargaining chip against them. The Wang clan immediately reported this to Qian Yu. After Yu Wenzhou pleaded his case, the Qian Yu emperor ordered him to retrieve the prince and destroy the Luo family. The man stood before the Luo residence. Qingtong's formations were child's play to him. With a wave, the formations shattered, spiritual energy exploding outwards from the Luo residence. The man raised his hand, a look of cold ruthlessness etched onto his face. "No survivors," he commanded. He stormed into the Luo residence, heading straight for Luo Lao Yizi. Zhan Ayu charged him, only to be swatted away like a bothersome insect. The last of the defenders was dealt with just as he reached the door. He activated a formation. To his surprise, this small Luo residence was surprisingly well protected. He channeled his spiritual power, summoning a massive energy shield. It was his signature move, Yijian Cheng Cheng. Suddenly, a sword beam from the Luo family sword pierced right through his defenses. Qingtong, disguised as Ziyi, stood before him. Numerous figures emerged from within the Luo residence. He ordered his men to prepare. He would deal with these intruders personally. Chunzu, worried about Qingtong's condition after she had ingested such potent medicine, urged her to be careful. Qingtong, however, ignored his concerns. The man was taken aback. Ziyi Guitong was actually defending the Luo family. Given the sensitive nature of Ziyi's identity, he approached cautiously. "Is there something I can help you with?" His dual swords transformed, becoming lethal weapons. A chilling, murderous aura emanated from Qingtong, blanketing the entire Luo residence. The man revealed his identity. "I am Yu Wenzhou of the Qian Yu imperial family." This only served to intensify Qingtong's killing intent. His sword technique was easily countered. The mist dissipated, revealing his protective armor. Xiaozu warned, "Master, careful. That's Wu Di armor." The man laughed maniacally. "A mere armor. Do you think that frightens me?" He attacked, but his blows had no effect. He raised his hand and punched Qingtong, sending her flying. A monstrous tiger materialized behind him, its spiritual energy radiating outwards. The tiger pounced. Chunzu, scared witless, flew out of hiding. "Master! Help!" He wanted to intervene, but Qingtong ordered him to stay back. He was curious about the formations, specifically if the Yin-Hun Muse would attribute could absorb the surrounding spiritual energy. Qingtong watched as the tiger approached. She sneered. "You're seriously injured, yet you still insist on using spiritual energy. You're courting death." Her red pupils glowed. She was a ruthless gambler. Spiritual energy surged into her sword. First move of Zhan Qianju. Fa Ju. A powerful force slammed into the tiger's paw. The tiger roared in pain. The next day, a group of unwanted guests showed up at the Luo family gates. The Luo family will fall thanks to Luo Qingtong. Pledge your allegiance to second miss before it's too late. Those who had been arrogant and dismissive before, writing Qingtong off as useless, were now groveling, begging to be spared. It turned out that after handling the situation at Juwu Mountain, Qingtong had returned to Luo Fu. With a single look, the man was immediately subdued by tears. Qingtong, however, poured the Yixiang head brought onto them, and ordered the war slaves, if they are so eager to join us, let them. She then had them locked up. Go tell Luo Shenning that she and her mother will pay for what they've done to my family and me. Back in the Luo residence, Luo Lao Yizi's face was ashen and drawn. Seeing the disarray, he weakly asked, "What happened?" The house staff knelt, trembling. The steward explained that Luo Lao Yizi's cultivation was rapidly fading. He would soon be a cripple. This news devastated Qingtong. Touching Luo Lao Yizi's pale face, she felt a deep ache in her heart. His cultivation had dropped to the 6th level of Wuzong, and was still falling. Rage surged through Qingtong. Who would create such a cruel and insidious plan? The steward recounted the whole story. It had been Luo Shenning's scheme. After Luo Lao Yizi collapsed, she seized control of the family, spreading rumors that Qingtong was to blame. Qingtong, however, didn't believe Luo Shenning was solely responsible. She lacked the guts and the brains for such a scheme. The Qianyu imperial family must have been behind it. She was merely a pawn. Luo Lao Yizi suddenly stirred. Seeing that Qingtong was unharmed, he was relieved. He blamed his own recklessness for the coma, and the worry had caused Qingtong. Qingtong, seeing his regret, comforted him. "Grandpa, please don't worry. I'll take care of it." Luo Lao Yizi chuckled weakly. "Losing some cultivation isn't a big deal. As long as you're safe." Qingtong's eyes filled with tears. Luo Lao Yizi had given up so much for her. How could she ever repay him? She held his hand. "Grandpa, don't worry. I can handle the Luo family. I'll help you recover. You'll be stronger than before." Meanwhile, at Luo Shenning's residence, the Luo Fu plaque hung proudly. Inside, Bai Lian and her family were celebrating. They had taken over the Luo family, toasting Qingtong's misfortune. The sound of horses' hooves interrupted their celebration. On eldest Miss orders, were here to arrest the second branch and seize their assets. Bai Lian's mother was furious. The war slave showed them the imperial edict, and fear filled the room. Bai Lian was terrified. She was shocked that a simple guard could be a 5th level woohoo. How is it that Luo Qingtong has such powerful guards? Seeing their hesitation, the war slave advanced. Bai Lian and her family scrambled back in fear. Bai Lian looked around wildly, then shoved her own father towards the war slave. Amidst the chaos, the war slave easily subdued Bai Lian's father. During their retreat, Bai Lian even resorted to throwing her maids at the guards, clearly prepared to sacrifice anyone to save herself. Screams of terror and fury echoed from the entrance. The men were imprisoned, but Lao begged to be released. He insisted on his loyalty to Wang Xifeng and the Qianyu emperor. Qingtong was also informed by the war slaves that Bai Lian had fled to the Da Qinsheng Yuan Academy. Arriving at the dungeon, Qingtong witnessed the man's desperate pleas. Qingtong sneered. "Your own father is being used as a shield, yet you still expect him to rescue you." The man, however, remained convinced that it was all Ning Er's scheme. His eyes were cold and hard. He would not forgive anyone who harmed his grandfather, especially not those who orchestrated everything from the shadows. He insulted the man, calling him worse than an animal for using his own father as a pawn. Lao oblivious, continued to argue. As Qingtong produced a few pills, she ordered the first war slave to give the pills to Luo Lao and to release the decoy outside. Luo Lao paled at her words. After the man swallowed the pills, his power surged dramatically. However, this boost would be followed by a devastating backlash. if he chose not to use the increased strength. He'd be transformed into a beast. Luo Lao cried out desperately, Ning. You won't get away with this. Qingtong ignored him. Bai Lian was next. That night, Qingtong sat in her study, poring over the account books. Zhan Enyu reported that Luo Shenning had returned to the Luo residence, accompanied by a Qianyu branch academy instructor. Strangely, this instructor seemed completely devoted to Qingtong. Intrigued, Qingtong decided to go see for herself. She instructed Zhan Enyu to compile a list of every gift she'd received from the royal family and the nobles, intending to present them all to Bai Lian. Bai Lian was pacing anxiously in her room. She was certain that Qingtong wouldn't let her off. Her father's disappearance was Qingtong's doing, after all. Chu Lao Ma was away, but if he dared to show his face and cause trouble, she'd make him regret it. Bai Lian put on a pitiful act, trying to gain Chu Lao's sympathy. He, in turn, believed that she was too kind and was therefore being bullied by Qingtong. A sudden crash startled them. The Luo family plaque lay shattered on the ground. Qingtong, atop her horse, ordered the war slaves to destroy the plaque. She slapped Bai Lian, whose face was caked with makeup, for daring to call herself a Luo. The war slaves enthusiastically carried out her order.